6 o'clock, time to start our meeting. Everybody else. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just looking around, I think that we have a quorum tonight, so we'll continue with the meeting. First, number 4 on the agenda is approve of minutes for May the 18th. Regular meeting. Is anyone have any questions or additions or comments for the May 18th meeting? If not, do I have a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting? Jerry and Steve, seconds. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. We have tonight a member request to speak to the board, Mr. Jacob Kroll. We have a microphone that has been set up for you if you would like to stand there and speak to us.
Yeah, someone needs to be.
Can everybody hear me? Yes. So the reason I'm here today is to, and we're obviously petitioning for, to petition clarity on an agreement that I signed with an owner out here and Lake Iowa notification of lease that I received shortly. I'll respect your time. My name is Jacob Kroll. I'm born and raised in Gainesville. I've been coming out to Lake Iowa now for about 20 years off and on. I do a lot of traveling. I've lived here with my sister for the last, I'd say 6.5, 7 months. I played a lot of golf with her. Most people know who she is. Better or worse, I think it's better. I love her to death. But the reason we're here today is because there was discrepancy or some issue that came about whenever we came into an agreement with an asset owner, a property owner out here to lease their golf rights. Actually, to lease all the facility rights that come along with that. But before we went into all this, I spoke with my sister about it, and we went through the bylaws rigorously and thoroughly. And I entered into an agreement with a partner over here, Steve Doran, and another asset owner out here. We wanted to make sure everything was by the book, so we cleared everything through the POA for NINA before any money was exchanged. Before any money was exchanged hands. We were looking at putting it under a trust or under a business name, but we were specifically told this is the way you go through this process by NINA. So I filled out the residential lease agreement, which is right here. I'll get you guys a copy of all of that as well. And then after this was approved for the POA, we received our notification of lease, which is the binding contractual document with the POA. And I'll get you a copy of that as well. So I'm not here to lay blame on anyone or any party. Hopefully achieve a resolution to this that is mutually beneficial to all parties concerned. My sister has come here today to support me. We've gone through some bylaws and some different definitions that are contained in those bylaws, and we'd like to get some clarity on those as well. So at the end of the day, or the end of this conversation, I'm not looking to set a new precedent or change anything that's consistent. We're not looking to change any bylaws whatsoever. The board does not have that authority regardless. So I'll go ahead and pass out the residential lease agreement, the Lake Iowa subdivision notification of lease that we received, And after we received this notification, it was signed, it was filled out by Nina, the POA. We enjoyed unlimited talk for about 3 weeks, maybe further than that. And I've received the notification from Charlie that this was no longer going to be the case. So I'm looking for a resolution, and we want to get this over quickly but fairly. I'll go ahead and pass out a couple of the documents that I just referenced, and I'll let my sister Jessica take it from here. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I don't know, I love Lake Howard. I love living here. I respect the law school covenants of Lake Howard, as I have to read the architectural handbook about every 2 months. I'm a best counselor out here. I understand you are trying to do the best for the community. I understand why some of the bylaws are in place, but it's what we're living in today. Everything does have to be legally binding, and it has to be good by not only employers, but and insurance as well. So to jump into this, the definition of leasing per your bylaws and your covenants. It talks about leasing as individual/individual because a property or a home. We also have a lot of different situations going on out here. Living with aging relatives, living with children that are over 25 years old, roommates. We have a lesbian couple. We have all kinds of stuff going on. And we have to try and accommodate to the times that we're living in. I don't know if there needs to be separate standards for quote unquote lot leases versus leases, but everything in the bylaws. The last thing I think that provides is October of 2019 covenants on some definition, and I have referenced all of them. So a leasing is referred to as individual or individual. So then if you have entered into a bona fide lease agreement, which we did with the current property owner lot 328. Before we did this, I called the POA and had a conversation with them about how this work, if we needed to put it in trust or if it's business name for his partner to both have, rights to the facilities of Lake Iowa, and was told that would not be an issue, even after reading through all the bylaws and seeing how that pertains. So you reference document 1, which is lease agreement between us and the homeowner. That is what I'm referring to. There's some other documentation here as referring to a family and what y'all consider a family, which also ends into someone that has a lease of property, whether they are technically your normal nuclear husband and wife and children, or whatever situation we may enter into. That being said, there's also very clear definitions on who is a member and who is a owner. It is very clearly stated in your bylaws that leasing of a lot of property do not have membership of that lot. And I think the reason for that is for voting purposes, which I could do in, and looking at a hearing by 100 properties and sway over what is our view. So I understand why y'all did some of the things that you did, but it is also clearly stated that APC is not a member. The only thing that continues afterwards, as far as our bylaws are concerned, referring to members, is not applicable to leasing the way that it's currently written. During the time that we see that we're going to retain our voting rights, they file notification negotiations with free deposit and lease agreement with kids. It clearly states that leasing of a lot in subdivision shall not become a member of the
Could I ask you if you're gonna talk to the mic so we can understand you? Charlie, did Nina screw it up? Huh? So what we wanna do? Huh? Does any of the board members have any comments?
Kathy, speak up very loudly if you would, please. You're muted. You unmute Kathy.
Can you hear me?
Microphone for
Okay. Did you cut and paste this or did you type it?
I couldn't get it from the bylaws, which I also brought with me.
Well, on page 2, it says sometimes referred to as common law, marriage, or domestic partnership agreement.
Yeah, I converted it to PDF.
Oh, okay,
There-
okay.
There's probably not a typo in your actual bylaws. but I
Okay,
converted it
thank
to a
you.
Word document and made
But did we
this
really
something.
put John
I
instead
had
of
to,
law?
I had to correct it.
Were there other corrections that you had to do or
There was just like 2 or 3
2 or
words,
3?
but
Okay. Just curious, that kind of threw
making
me.
sure that y'all stuff wasn't misspelled.
Yes.
I understand.
Thank you.
anyone else have any comments? Any board members?
Can you hear me? Um, um, Let me ask a question of Steve and Jacob to make sure I understand. And please don't take this just, are you claiming to be in a domestic partnership?
They don't have to be. All they have to be is in a lease of property.
No, let him answer the question, please. This is about him. It's not about you.
Are you asking about sexual preferences?
That's what's contemplated in the bylaws that you're quoting here. So I think that this talks about common law marriage or domestic partnership. That's what's quoted in the bylaws.
Or leases the property which we are bona fide contract lease, that's duly, not duly noted, it's noted in the front of the agreement that was signed with the asset owner or Jacob Crawl. That was the contract that was executed and it was later written off on by the POA, and then we later received a lease agreement from the POA filled out by the head into the head of the POA.
Was that a slight? Well, okay. So one of the things, and I think, go ahead. Jim, do you want to?
Computer audio is. Yeah, thank you.
So a couple of things. Hold on here. We got technical difficulties. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. In,
Well, that's why I put the definition of family on there second, because we talked about the definition of family, spouse and children and such. And then in B, it says both parties in are on the deed or lease of the property. They are leasing the property. If it said and, there would be different, but it says or.
okay, can everybody, all the board members hear me? Rick Walker, can you hear me? Unfortunately, our legal counsel is unable to be with us this evening, but he provided you all a response, an email response, correct?
That's not correct.
Yes.
Steve,
That says yes, no answer, and he provided you a written response. Well, I disagree with that. I was copied on the response. So before we start arguing and debating and all this, I'll say one thing, and
received a response from the council, but it did not address any of my concerns.
time, Jessica, you're not on this lease. These two gentlemen are on the lease. So I would prefer that we deal with these two gentlemen. So, and if you're going to comment sides, this is a formal process here. This isn't, so you all need to follow the rules or we will stop the process right now. And I need to make that real clear. Okay, thank you. So one of the things is the legal counsel responded. Unfortunately, he is unavailable to be with us this evening. He did provide, in the key linchpin in here is the bylaws number 5.01, which is a limitation on number of memberships per lot. From and after 11 September of 1982, membership be limited to one member per lot, provided, however, the number of memberships available. That was lots that were grandfathered in. Okay. I distributed that to the board members. That was the last one in here. You follow the sequences of this. It's defined up there. And once again, this is not a question and answer at this point. You've stated your case and I'm stating the information that we've got here. Okay. I also see in granted, the cards were issued erroneously by the person that you mentioned earlier. I think she has a different recollection of some of the timings of things, but we don't want to debate that now. I did put in here that you're asking for compensation. I think if you feel like, I think one of the things the board consider would be to tear up your lease. Neither of you would play golf here and we would come up with a refund. I think that could be a solution out there that we may want to consider. No, none of these board members can make a waiver to the bylaws or the covenants. Okay. Those are in place hard. Okay. We made a mistake. Okay. So if you want to tear it up, then we can, you know, well, I think you took that out of context, or you could possibly do it, but I guess I'll offer it up to the board. You want to offer it up to the board?
What we'll do, after we've heard all the different discussion here, we can offer to them the request that's being made. However, again, going back to legal counsel that we have for the association and also past precedent This is not the first case of this. Back in 1986, a similar situation. And at that time, it was ruled that this was not to be. Now, I'll leave it up to the board here. You know, if you want to discuss it, if we want to discuss it here tonight, otherwise we will take the immediate action that's necessary to take care of this situation. Anybody have any more comments or any board members? Very quiet.
Yeah, thank you very much for saying that. What is immediate action? Let me back up. What we're looking for is just for the contract to be honored. We're not looking for a refund. If it comes to that, then so be it. But we're looking to have the Lake Iowa Board of Directors honor the contract that we had with them, and we still have with them.
After looking at it, this is just my personal opinion, I think that the contract was entered into improperly by the POA. According to the bylaws, as I read them, you're not a property owner, is that correct?
That's
You're
correct.
a leasing.
Means I can't be a member either.
You cannot be a member either. And as a leasing, you are the one that can use the golf course. You're the one that's paying for it. You're the leasing, one leasing is not a property owner. And again, going back to what Charlie was saying, we do not have our legal counsel here. We're discussing it with them. The next thing that we can do is, as a board, make a motion as to how we will handle this tonight. And if that's agreeable to the board, we can do this. So we can, so that we, what we'll do is, we'll just make a motion on this and then we'll go with that from how the board actually feels about, how we will take action on this. Clerk?
What does it say we may waive the bylaw or allow modifications to the bylaw?
We as a board cannot.
I've been looking through here and I can't find it.
It requires the vote by, we just went through it with a vote on the bylaws, and it requires a vote of the property owners.
Well, it says waiver or amendment. I'll look at it.
Randy?
All right. I'm looking down at the contract and it says name of spouse and it's got your signature. And I just heard you say that y'all weren't in any type of domestic. So I'm confused. I just signed it there because that was the spot to sign it. I mean,
Contractual understanding was that I had a business partner who wanted to lease the lot for $185 a month plus $1,000 deposit. And I said, is this bona fide? Is this good? After we researched the bylaws and whatnot. And she said, absolutely. She said, I've approved your rental lease agreement and I will fill out the lease agreement with the POA. And she said, just go ahead and put his name by spouse. This is the way we've been doing it forever. And then we come back, it was 3 weeks later, after we were told that POA reneged on that. I know it's a strong word, but reneged on that agreement. And I said, what happened? And she said, well, things have changed a lot over the last 2 to 3 weeks, but this is the way it's always worked. And my sister was there with me, and she said, well, it's in the bylaws that you can't have 2 lessees on an agreement. And she said, well, we'll have to look that up. But this is the way I was instructed to do this. And I said, okay. So that's where we're at today. No, he's not my spouse. No, we're not gay lovers, if you will, but he is my partner in different respects and regards. Why we entered into this
Yeah, one thing I'd just like to add too, okay, you're two business partners. However, let's say the next thing we get is 10 business partners wanting to do the same thing you're doing, and the precedent has been set. I don't think we as an association can allow that to take place. Jim Adams?
I'm not an attorney, but I'll tell you how I interpret this. And if we, as we move forward, anything we do move forward with, I'd want to get our attorney's legal definition. But just because you have definitions in an agreement or a document, those are stand separately on their own. And the fact that there is a lessee, or you can have multiple lessees on a document, that's just a definition. There can be more than one lessee in for any property in this area or in Lake Kiowa. Then it goes on to define family, because that needs to start to define who uses the amenities of Lake Kiowa. And that's where, when you get into family, I don't believe you guys fit the definition of family as it's defined. And then membership defines, there's a membership definition. It defines what a member is. And then, as Sam mentioned a minute ago, the intentions of the rules and prior court precedents has stated that in POAs that you can define, a member can pass on their amenities or their there's a fancy word, appurtenances, to a lessee, but there's still only one member. And so that whoever owns this property can only pass it on to one person, not multiple persons. And so just because it says multiple lessees, I don't interpret that to mean that you get full privileges.
I understand the positioning there. For instance, let's say
Do we want,
I was married, which I'm not, and I had eight
Charlie,
kids.
do we want to table this and get less in?
We are looking to explore the middle area, looking into hopefully helping guys out in the future with revival. And I'm saying this with complete and total respect, and I'm being humble. But there's an issue in the way that this entire deal was structured. It was approved, it was written off on it by the POA. Zero money would have exchanged hands otherwise. If I thought there was an inkling of an issue with us both not having full privileges, I would not have taken it all. I've spent over probably $3,000 on green fees the last 6 months. So I have contributed to Lake Kiowa. And I continue to. I don't think I'm that much. You have a great golf course. It's a great.
We're going to go. Can I have some input from the board? What do you think? Let's go.
I think we need to get a legal opinion.
Do we need to table this, and when we get back with Leslie, our attorney, then we could look at this a little bit further? Jim?
Yes, I believe he has. Jacob got a copy, and I did not print it out because the plan was for him to be here, and he's had a medical situation that's prevented him from being here.
Yeah, I did
So.
receive an email from Leslie, but there was 100% of the email was referring to members, which we are clearly defined as not members of lessees. So I did receive a response, but it did not address any of the issues or questions I had regarding lessee rights. It was all member based, and clearly we're not members because we don't own property. Now, if we came out here and leased a house together in the same domicile, regardless of our sexual preferences,
That typically would be the case, but the vast majority of the lessees out here would be husband and wife, or man and man, or wife and wife. So I think that you ask about, I think Jim Adams did a great recap of it. I think that that was basically Leslie's opinion. I think if you look at the bylaws, the limitation of memberships per lot, and I think what Jacob is trying to say is membership doesn't pertain to them because they're lessees. I wouldn't say that a lessee would get any more privilege above and beyond what a member would get. So I do think in the documents that they submitted to us, they talk about, financial restitution. One of the suggestions I could make is that the board could consider to, since the POA made a mistake, is we could do a pro rata refund of their money, and then neither of them would be playing golf out here. That's one solution to this. We'd refund their money and give them their deposit back and go on down the road. So that, I think that's a possibility there. Yes.
Well, and once again, I'm not looking for a refund unless that's what it comes down to. I'm looking to be able to play off the agreements that we have in place. Let me ask you this, Charlie. With Nina structuring this entire deal, and then 3 weeks later, she seems very capable. What happened in that timeframe that changed?
Nina has can you hear me?
Yeah.
If Nina was here, I think she'd have a different version of the story than you all have put together. She typically deals with 99% of what she deals with is committed spouses, husband and wife that come in. Typically, the vast majority of what we deal with is either on a deed where both parties are typically recorded on the deed, or a traditional lease where it's either an individual or a couple. When this came out, and frankly, it came out, you all know why it came out, because both of you applied for the MGA membership. Okay. And that's when the red flags went off and said, oh, what happened here? And then that's when we went back, and she stated to me that she was confused on it. She felt there was some pressure there. That was her words. Okay. You entered a residential lease agreement with your landlord for a vacant lot. Okay. That's what you entered in with your landlord. You then came and presented to the POA, and that's when we set up the paperwork. And that's when the mistake began, and there was a mistake. So unfortunately, it should have been caught right at that point in time. We do catch things like this. You all are clearly not the first ones. Most often what comes forward with this is when two family members buy a property jointly. Typically, it'll be a brother and a sister, or a brother and a brother, or a sister and a sister. In that case, and it shows in here that there's one of those families that's designated the member for privileges. Okay. And that's where that typically comes, that's what's come about. That's when that comes about. We have numerous examples of joint ownership out here. Lots of different joint ownerships. We've got LLCs, we've got living trust, and that's typically, there's only one set of members there. Okay. And that's what we operate on. So
Once again, we're not members, we're leasees, so.
let me tell you a little secret is lessee is a notch below an owner. Okay. And it says that because you give up the voting privileges. Okay. It says you have some of the rights. So as I was saying there, I don't see this being, I think we've heard from you all. We appreciate that. And we've heard your side. I will definitely go back and ensure that my employee is well informed. I think that what I think the board can contemplate and consider would be, do we refund all of your money from the time when Steve stopped playing golf, and then both of you go play golf elsewhere? Okay. Or you come in on guest passes, or if you want to say one of you takes over this lease, then one of you takes over this lease and they will play golf. But I wouldn't see a refund in that case. Okay. You want to unmute Rick?
Yeah, I couldn't hear all the conversation. Charlie, could you give me the background? is the POA the owner of the lot, and how long has this lease been in place?
No, the POA is not owner of the lot. It's Davina Stevens, and this went into effect on April 15th, 2020. And I think it came to light the first or second week in May.
Okay, you mentioned something about tearing up the lease. We can't tear up the lease, right?
We could tear up our notification of lease with them, and I just threw it out there that we could buy out their lease with their landlord, so to speak. That's a possibility.
Yeah, I think, there was possibly a misunderstanding, but that doesn't overcome the bylaws and everything. I think if one of them wants to keep playing golf, just one of them can play golf and the other one can pay.
I think we have discussed this enough. It's a case of where we as the board, what you're asking us to do is to violate the bylaws as we see them and as our attorney sees them, that one leasee can play golf and the other leasee is going to have to pay for the golf. And you're asking us as a board to violate bylaws that we cannot do. So if the way it is here now, I would like to make a motion to the board, and we'll just take care of this real quick. I'll make a motion that based upon the advice of association legal counsel, past presidents, to deny Mr. Jacob Krall's request to allow two non-family members to have privileges on one lease lot at Lake Kiowa. Do I have a second on that? A second by Jim. Do we have any discussion? Jim?
Jim, you're muted.
You're muted, Jim.
Do we need to discuss any refunds, or I guess we almost need to hear their request for given that, or amount to allow. Seems like if they want out of their lease, well, the lease itself is not our problem, but any fees they paid the POA and a security deposit to us would be reasonable to ask for.
Well, I think that could be discussed after we vote on this motion.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
Do we have any other discussion on the motion? Clerk?
Well, we're not gonna listen to a legal opinion unless, do we have that? Do we feel like we have that?
Yes, he sent it and he copied you on it, didn't he? Yeah.
I did not get a copy of it.
I don't think I did either.
Okay.
But his opinion, it sounds as though his opinion dealt with members rather than leasing. And obviously a leasing is not a member, okay? And a leasing, in my opinion, based upon my review of the bylaw just now, could not attain something greater than a member could attain. So.
Well, that's why I made the motion in turn that we deny this request, because of the fact it is a leasing and not a member.
Well, I'm not a lawyer. Jim said he's not a lawyer either, even though I've practiced law all my whole life. So, and I didn't have time to review the whole bylaw. So
could you make amend your motion to say subject to legal opinion, or should we hear the legal opinion before we vote? I know how I read it, and I'm perfectly fine with it.
So again, Steve?
Unmute, Steve.
We've been through this in different situations, and it is what it is. You only get one, if it's a corporation that owns a lot in the house, only one of the families of that corporation can use the deal. Not everybody who's in the corporation, and it's the same type of deal. So I think, we can vote on it and move on. It's a shame that they got wrong information, but that's all we can do. We can't change we're not going to make precedents here.
Anyone else comment?
Well, I agree.
I think that's good.
Okay, we have a motion before us, it has been seconded. All in favor, with aye, or raise your hand. All opposed? The motion passes. Okay, next item on the agenda.
Yep.
Sorry.
I guess the question is, will we be refunded, or will we refund that money prorated? I'm
He's
good
got-
with whatever calculations you have, that's fine. However, you want to do it, I don't know how that's gonna get resolved.
So I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you. You want to talk into the microphone.
No, my question was, if you're declining the lease now, cancel. I mean, I understand all that, but who's going to refund the money, and where can we pick up that money? Who is responsible for that?
Okay, his question was, can everybody hear me via Zoom? Okay. His question was, he was fine with the ruling. I think you said you understood that. Okay, he understood that. His question was possible financial restitution. So, ironically, the board can only vote on things that are listed on the agenda. And the request was discuss and take possible action allowing 2 non-family members to have privileges. That's what they voted on. So that's I don't know where you're getting that from, because that's not on my agenda. That's on your paperwork. So to do this correctly, it'll have to be an agenda item on the next board that will also allow, hopefully our council will be physically able to be present. So that is something that we'll put on the next board meeting, which is scheduled for the 3rd Monday in August at this point in time. So, and that'll have to be listed as a separate request. July, I'm sorry. No, please listen to what I'm saying. Is this board, for it to make decisions, it has to be listed on the agenda. That's required in our bylaws. That paperwork that you're referring to, we saw it for the first time at this evening after 6 o'clock. Okay, so we will put it on the agenda for the 3rd Monday in July. Thanks for the month correction. Okay, what I'd like for you all to do is put your request in writing, okay, and submit that as soon as you can to it. And then this board will hear that request and then be able to make a decision at that point in time for consideration. And that will also allow us to go back and do the proper fact checking with our employees, get the attorney to double check it and all of that good stuff. So yes, we will definitely consider it. But this board is bound once again, you've heard this, by its bylaws to only contemplate, make decisions on items that are on this agenda and posted 72 hours in advance.
I understand that. In the meantime, I guess what my question is, you referenced carrying out the lease agreement, which is a contract between myself and Kyle. Does that mean that my golf privileges are revoked immediately, or can I keep my golf privileges so there's a resolution to this in the next month?
Good question. One of you has golf privileges. You two need to come up with the decision-making process, either flipping the coin or whatever. And that's what you'll decide. But clearly one of you has golf privileges. And I think that ought to be part of your proposal as well, what you feel like the long-term solution is. So. Okay.
Okay, moving along. Financial update. Clark, could you give us a financial update, please?
And hang on a second, I'm gonna have to get it up on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You ready?
I am, but it's not on the screen.
Sorry. Okay, do we have it on the screen?
We do. Thank you. If you could switch to the second page, please. Bottom line treasurer summary. This is revenue versus expense. Also note that our year to date is for 11 months. So we're 11 months into this fiscal year. And so those year to date numbers start to have a little more meaning the deeper we get into the year. We've only got one more year to go. So that's really important to note. Given the tumultuous situations we've had this year with the weather, COVID-19, and now, well, we hadn't had any experienced rioters out here, and I suspect that they wouldn't get in the front gate. But revenue for May was approximately $390,000 with expenses of a very equal amount for a net loss or net revenue loss of $461 versus a May budget of a $20,409,000 potential up gain. Actual to budget, we were down $20,900 approximately. But however, year to date, we're $92,250 to the good. Okay. Flip the page, please. On the revenue side, revenue contributors, as you can see, the lodge only operating at 25% capacity didn't make their budget, and they were short 26,700. Green fees, we had excessive rain, the course was closed, and with lack of guests coming through the main gate to bring up our green fees, we were about $5,700 short on that one as well. However, Pete did it again. Newsletter ads were $3,100 better than budgeted. Thank you, Pete. Next page, please. On the expense side, and this is for the month, sanitation cost us about $8,700 for the spring This is April spring cleanup, which was booked in May, and the storm cleanup in May. So that kind of ran us a little high there. Golf course was higher by about 18,430, and that was due to water, which Charlie referenced earlier, salaries with overtime because of tree limbs, new plants, and golf cart rental for the workers because they can't share golf carts. So the golf had to get golf cart rental, so one to a cart. Admin was $2,000 better due to salaries. Lodge management was, anybody hear me? Lodge management was $3,250 better due to salaries and some other minor miscellaneous items. Lodge food and beverage was better than budget, even though you can compare that to the revenue side there for about $14,500. And that was salaries, food supplies, and liquor. When you're not going to sell it, we cut back on the purchase, and that's resulting in that number. Security was better by about $5,000 due to salaries and other miscellaneous items. Next, please. Just to reinforce the 2 pages I've been, if you'll look at your packet on page 12, at the top of that page, you can see the May funding versus expense. It runs down to about the halfway of that page. And you can see the year-to-date numbers, the 11-month year-to-date numbers over on the right. You can see the 11-month actual, the 11-month budget, and the 11-month year-to-date. You can see that we're 128 to the good, but you got to take out lot sales, which gets you back down to that $90,000 or that $70,000 number, or the $92,000 number when you take out lot sales. So that's where we probably should be focusing more, is on those year-to-date numbers versus these monthly numbers, because we're really going through some tough times in a lot of weird categories. Okay, I just point you to that so you can study that a little bit. The ARF balance, back to the slide presentation. The ARF balance was up 55,000 to $1,437,000. The CARF balance was down 62, but its balance still is 725,000. And the capital development balance of 0 is down 21,600. It's at 0. Delinquent accounts, and Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the CDRF? The capital development balance, CDRF, which is we took our last little bit of money out of there to finish as the pavilion allowance from that account. However, there's some lot sales that's going back into that account, is there not? It's about 40,000 in that neighborhood, right? That are not part of I think it's about 40,000.
It's about 40,000 before taxes. And
Right.
after taxes comes out, the net will probably be somewhere in the low 30 range, depending on
Correct.
what the effective tax rate is at that point in time.
I'm just trying to get to a number net of the pavilion.
Yep.
Okay. Delinquent accounts increased about 770,000 over the April numbers. Or $770, sorry. Excuse me. I like big numbers. 30 days, there were 31 accounts for 9,500, 60 days, 6 accounts for 2,400, 90 days, 8 accounts for 13,200 in those numbers. So that was a total of 25,000, which is still a really good number based upon our revenue. We do a really good job at collecting accounts. Indian Creek Volunteer Fire Department opt in on their monthly that we bill for them, 158 total members. Next page, please. Checking account, we have 495,000 in that account. Checking, payroll, and tavern. Reserve funds, contingency, security deposits, most of that is in CDs. We have 2,440,000. Balance of all accounts, 2,940,000. approximately. And that's all I got, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. This time, let's go to number 7, COVID-19 committee update. Kathy?
All right, can everybody hear me? Good. I was going to quickly go over the May 28th meeting that we had with Cook County and just hit the high points. That was a Thursday that we had the call, and the following Friday, the 29th, they did their last day of testing at the makeshift center that they had built in Gainesville. And they were sending everybody to the private sector for testing, beginning in that first week of June. At that time, and this again was May 28th, we had 19 total cases confirmed with 3 active at that point in time. And Ray Fletcher had some of his EMS people working at the WinStar, preparing for the casinos to open, and they were testing anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000. I think they have a total of 3,000 employees at WinStar, and all of them needed to be tested before they came back to work. The hospitals were keeping up with everything. They did not have any cases of COVID in the hospitals. Doctors' offices were staying up with patient load, treating them and sending them home. End of June, Ray believes, will be another measure of how the area is doing. And we've seen some of the larger metropolitan areas obviously going up again. VOAD finished up on June 1st, and they let all their volunteers go home, but they will recall them if needed when things get serious again. The ISDs that were participating in that meeting, we had just had that really bad storm throughout. Kiowa didn't have near as much damage as some of the other cities, but there was graduations going on that week. Gainesville graduated 185 students at Texas Motor Speedway, and Dr. Stewart, their superintendent, had started planning for the fall, which all of them are working on their fall schedule. Walnut Bend graduated 4 students, and they had the roof torn off their gym during that storm. So they had it much worse at Walnut Bend. Valley View, they graduated their students on May 31st at 2 p.m. outdoors, and they had electrical damage from the storms. The last meeting, phone call we had was last Thursday, and it was not very well attended because things are starting to wind down, we hope. And so that was the last meeting. They will reinstate the bi-weekly meeting if we need to later in the fall. And at that point, we had 23 confirmed cases in Cook County with 2 actively occurring. Cases reported in Texas, 87,854, and that's current as of today. Active cases in Texas, 27,537. Fatalities, 1,976. Dallas County has reported 14,537 as of today, and they're starting to creep up. They're getting close to 300 daily. Deaths in Dallas County, 285. Tarrant County, as of today, 7,498, 197 deaths. Denton County, 1,736, 36 deaths. Collin County, 1,667 with 37 deaths. So I guess we'll take this off the agenda unless you want me to just keep up with the numbers. And if I hear anything, I'll be talking to Ray Fletcher probably every other week, just checking on things.
Yeah, we'll, at your recommendation there, Kathy, we'll go ahead and take it off of the agenda in the future.
Okay.
I think it'd be good if we take us about a 5-minute break. We've been sitting here for quite a while.
Yay.
Well, let's, if I could, let's do that after, I have a couple more COVID things before we let Kathy go.
Okay,
Does anybody else have any COVID issues? Well, what,
Other than if Kathy
notices
notices
or feels necessary,
she can put something on the agenda anytime though. Or
call
call
a
me.
meeting or something pops up.
and the reason I brought this up, I distributed via email some of the issues, some of the requests. There's an issue to, there was a request to allow line dancing in here,
Mhm.
which I think we ought to talk about that and see what parameters it falls under. There's a whole lot of requests coming our way. So there's relaxing of a lot of different behaviors. You know, the guidelines have not relaxed that much from the governor, with the exception of the golf cart. You know, it doesn't require single people per golf cart. Restaurants in some areas are 75%. There was another one related to a large group wanted to come in and have dinner in the 19th hole and would, you know, be almost at 75%. And I don't know if we even want to worry about that. My concern, it's a group that typically is over 70,
Yeah.
and they're going to mix households in there and you know, want to have dinner in close proximity to each other. Our suggestion, what we want to suggest, is that they do it in this room here and we spread people out further apart and allow them to be able to do it. I don't want to be able to, I don't want to police it. I mean, and leave it up to them. But I think we're asking for trouble if we put 36 people in the 19th hole from, you know, 18 different households or whatever. If it's 16 people or 16 couples, so 32 people, to me, that's a lot of people in a confined area. So
I think
The couples, don't they tee off and two go? And I don't think everybody meets at one time. I think there's a 2-hour overflow that comes in. The first group goes off and then they come in and eat, and then, you see what I'm saying? They tee off Thursday afternoons and they go, the couples play, and then they come in and eat. And
It's usually a big gathering.
well, I mean, I know there's probably a gathering, but
Thursdays
do everybody meet, all 70 people?
They all meet together and then they give out the money.
Oh, okay.
So it's,
There's a 2-hour window for their tea times. So
Jim?
Charlie, my question would be, what does the 19th hole, if we're at under 75% guidelines, what does the 19th hole actually allow? And then if it allows 30 people, I don't see how you change the rules for normal dining versus a group of people reserving it all at once.
good answer. I'll have to go back to the pre-COVID table map and count chairs and see what it was. The challenge with the COVID regulations is they're allowing up to 75%, but you still have to be 6 feet apart, or you have to put in plexiglass partitions. So, you know, it's kind of a down a mouse hole, so to speak, or rabbit hole of saying, you can go to 75, but these are the other deals. I would prefer not to get into plexiglass partition business. So I think that would be problematic in keeping clean and all that. What I can do is I'll go back tomorrow, get out a table map, and then if we can come up with that number, it's still recommending that people not from the same household stay 6 feet apart. And I think we could do that in here. We could get, you know, those 6 foot tables and put spouses on that and then work it around. And, you know, it'd be different, but they would be able to be in the same room together. So, but good answer or good question. Let me go back and do that. But it's clearly not, 40 people would not be 75% being able to stay 6 feet away.
I think we need to do that for each room in this building and do the math for it, because there's gonna be requests, and there's gonna be one more right after this, how many people fit in this room, but then there's different kind of situations. But the same for the dining room, or same for the patio. It's like, how many people can we fit? And if you take a large reservation, then we can just say, if you follow these rules, this is how many people you can fit.
Good point. We'll go back and, and it's really two-pronged, because then you've got to say the 6-foot distancing too. You understand what I'm saying?
But we're not doing that as a restaurant right now.
Well, it's supposed to be set up that way. So we have people pulling tables and doing, a lot of different things.
Well, that's not entirely true the way you say that, Charlie. I've seen there's tables with 8 people or six people at them, and they're not always in the same family. You're just not policing it, because I don't see how you can police it.
The governor now allows tables up to 10.
Okay.
Yeah, the 10 is what it is. His recommendation is from the same family. We are not policing that, so that's up to those folks to do that. So we could do the same thing with this. We could just say, we're not even worried about this group, and just say, we'll set it up on how you want it. I'm a little bit hesitant to that, because, my concern is that we're paving the way for them to do something that may not be something good. So Sam, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I think that accommodation should be made if we can, as long as we abide by the CDC and Texas rules that we have in place. We are a business, I think. What about the liability? If we just open it up and just let people do what they want to do, or we have any liability on it? Good question. So, yeah. I think we just need to abide by the rules.
My point is, again, I'll go back to, I agree with everything you just said. That's what we should do. But to sit there and say you're going to deny one group, but then you allow a tin top sit out there from different households, we got to find the right balance there. What's the right way to do that?
Rick's got something. Rick's got something.
Hey, yes. So I think our responsibility is to set the tables up like the governor suggests. That's our responsibility. To go beyond that and go to everybody and say, prove to us that you're in the same family or whatever, I don't think that's our responsibility. Our responsibility is to set up the tables and let people know what the governor recommends.
I agree with that. We all are in agreement on that? Okay. That sounded good enough to Charlie for you? Okay. Kathy?
I know the line dancers are anxious to get back into dancing. I think, Sam, to your question, that falls more into athletic gym activity. It's not truly, dancing with a partner. It's individually. Most of them. There's a few contact dances we do, but not many. And I don't know if it would be allowed to put stickers on the floor to show them the 6-foot distancing to help them stay at that distance, because that's not the way we dance anytime. But I know they're very anxious to get back at it again. And Debbie's number was a little bit low. We get 40 to 45 every Monday morning.
What did we do for the tap?
But the capacity of this
groups?
room, if you judge it as a gym, is 50% capacity, but what's the capacity? If different if you're eating versus working out.
Yeah.
So you got a little, nothing's easy. But I know they're very anxious to get back to dancing again. But I just don't know how they can do it and stay 6 feet apart.
How did we handle the tap group, the tap dancers?
They're much smaller.
But I
Donna's
mean,
classes are 5 to maybe 8 people, and they just space out.
yeah, what restrictions though, I thought we put on them the same, the distance, 6 feet
6 feet
apart.
apart. And she spaces them, and, you know, they may get a little close sometimes, but
So you-
they do a good job, I think.
So can you have 40 to 50 people spaced 6 feet apart in here?
I don't know. Since you're standing and dancing, I would think you could do it.
Jim, you had a,
Well, I mean, Randy's counting. 10. We have 10 right now, and we're taking up a third of the room. Maybe not less than a third of the room right now, so you can at least get 30 in here.
And when they line dance, they're all in theory doing it pretty much the same thing.
We just need to determine what the, like Kathy said, if it's a gym, this is a gym for that purpose, then we need to think, what's the capacity in this room for individuals, and then say that's the number and allow that consistently for all groups.
Charlie, do you need any more from us on that?
I think the capacity is 10. No, I think the capacity is different depending on when people are in a seated dinner, you know, you either get 8 or 10 around those tables. 8's comfortable, 10's crowded. Okay. Now I think with people up moving, I think that probably the capacity is probably 40 to be safe. And you might start off being smaller and see how it works out. I wouldn't want to put 60 people in here because all it takes is 1 or 2 bad dancers and they're bumping into each other and knocking everybody over. So I think that you may want to start off with 40. Yeah.
This isn't just a dance.
Yeah.
This isn't just a dance. I
When you
mean,
say things like that, it implies that we're setting a rule for just one thing. This applies to other parties who want to come in here for social activities or different activities that occur, and they don't always sit down and eat. They may have a meeting, they have a chapel in here. How many people are we going to allow for chapel?
That's much easier because they were spaced in the chairs like the chairs are spaced here. They also put protocols in place where people were supposed to come up and start seating at the front and work their way to the back, which is opposite of how much most churches fill up, right? They usually start from the back and go to the front. So in this case, if they start at the front, then it fills logically. So, and I don't even know, I haven't heard how many people they had yesterday. Does anybody have any idea? So
Wanda said it was maybe 30.
okay, but really in this case, we've got our crew has the chair spacing pretty well done. And if you look at how those are spaced out and the message they sent out, I think was pretty clear in terms of some of the hazards and how to minimize the hazards. So
Yeah, they sent out a good note
Yeah.
before chapel, I thought. They
Yeah,
did a good job.
I think the social functions are going to be somewhat different because one of the purposes is to mingle. Whereas chapel, I think it's probably, there is some socialization going on, but hopefully they came in, did a worship and then left. But yeah, I think we can sit down and look at it. You're right, is the governor has different, guidelines for lots of different activities.
Yeah.
Okay. Bars are different than restaurants. Okay. Retail, is different. I think in this case, this is a multi-purpose room. So I think there's usage here. I would say for physical activities where people are moving around, you do need to take into consideration how that spacing will work. So you probably need more spacing if people moving versus if they're sitting. So.
Well, you got to remember, they're breathing heavy. They are emitting a lot of moisture in the air. There's no stopping it. If you put your heart into it, you're gonna be doing a lot of that heavy breathing.
Rick's got a comment.
Hey, I'm out here in California where they really take the mask thing seriously. So I'm wondering, and Kathy, to your point there about them breathing hard. I know it's, I don't like wearing my mask time out here when I'm in a store or whatever, but they pretty much require it. You can't get in the store without a mask on. And I saw one guy try to take us down to talk, and the cashier said, "No, I'll leave it up." What, do you have any idea if they'd be willing, all be willing to wear their masks during the line dancing?
The last few times we got together, when I was working with the leadership group, there were, I was the only one, and one other instructor wanted to wear it, but didn't feel comfortable. And it is very difficult to breathe and work out in a mask. And I was using the N95s at that time, and they're twice as thick.
Jim, Adams,
I'd like to just make a motion, we allow Charlie to set the guidelines per room and try to break it down by different events that occur in these rooms. And that's what we go by until we get together again, but I'll reserve the right to ask for a special meeting if those numbers aren't reasonable.
do I have a second? Seconded by Randy. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Can I discuss?
Yes.
Would you help me with that?
Sure.
Okay, I think 2 heads, 3 heads would be better than one. Looking at it from a variety of different viewpoints would be good. And Kathy, if you want to,
Oh, sure.
if you want to be involved,
Absolutely.
let's, and what I'll do is try to see if there's any new stuff out there. And those of you that have tried to follow the governor's orders realize that it gets twisty and turning pretty darn quick, right? But yeah, I think that's great, Jim, and I think that's a very reasonable solution. And we're definitely getting pressure to open it back up. And we want to use it. So.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
If we just had that pavilion, we could get them
Now let's take a
outside.
5-minute break.
Well,
Be back in
that
about 5
sounds
minutes.
true, but there's got to be rules out there too. So
Oh,
when it opens,
absolutely.
we're
And
gonna
the
have
same
to
would
set rules.
apply, I think.
Different outside though than inside.
Yeah. You don't have the filtration
Ready? Okay, let's reconvene. We have any committee updates? Anyone have any new members for committees or charter changes? Moving on along. Architectural Control Committee, Jim Adams has some things for us.
You said, wait a second.
That's it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the first one. All right. So we have I believe 3 items that came out of the Architectural Control Committee as recommendations to the for the board to decide on, and what their recommendation was. First one being vacant interior lot 1594 and improved lots 1595 and 1596 to be constituted. And this property is owned by it's on 310 Comanche Drive. It's owned by Casey and Amy Harrell. So it's a constitutional lot. They're going to use the lot for additional parking of vehicles and boat, and also to do some some work related to their culverts and driveways into those lots. So I don't know what all you have in your presentation, Charlie. Everything in the packet. Okay. And this is just what Rich presents to us in the ACC, but just shows you where this is, and then has a representation of the lots. There's the 3 lots that are in question. We go in the ACC, we go through and anytime we do anything, we check meets all the standards of our ACC rules and septic type things. So this is just a rendition of what the property looks like and where they're putting the culvert in to help with that property. So again, ACC recommends that we approve this constitution, and upon our approval, they will submit this to Cook County for their approval and recording as a change in the subdivision or replat, and then they'll pay us the fees for constitution.
Okay, have a motion on that? Do we need a motion on that for constitution?
Oh yeah. Let me. So I'll just put forward a motion from the, that we accept the ACC's recommendation to approve the constitutional lots of lot 1594 with lots 1595 and 1596.
Have a motion. Do you have a second? Jerry, see. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, your next one.
Second one is dividing up of lots, and it's actually related to lots 72 and 73. The owners are let me let Charlie catch up here. Charlie, did I just lose you, or am I just not seeing something, or you? It's the full PowerPoint. Now it's back to video. There you go. Yes, this is lots 72 and 73, 102 Kiowa Drive South, and 100 Noetta Place South, so by the Linghams. And they want to divide a lot. This will allow them to do some construction. So they need to move. They need to move the lot line from one of the lots over so they can meet standards. And again, can go through all the details if you guys want to see that, run through it. But it's just moving the lot line over, and then they'll submit that to Commissioner's Court after our approval. So again, the ACC committee has met on this and is making a recommendation. So I make a motion.
Rick has a question here.
Okay, sorry.
Hey,
Hang on,
Jim,
let me get sound.
okay. Can you hear me now?
Gotcha.
Yeah. Are both of these lots owned by the same people, or is this an agreement with another landowner to allow the lot line to be moved?
They're both owned by the owner, or the Linghams own both lots.
Okay, so they might want to sell off a second one or something afterwards, maybe.
Well, once they build over it, I don't think they could. Because they're moving the lot line. They're moving the lot line on this so they can provide for construction and stay within. I guess I'm sorry. I see what you're saying. They could sell off that additional lot, and the size of this lot will still be reasonable for or follow ACC guidelines and rules for construction of a building or a residence. Does that answer your question?
Right.
Now, wait, I thought there was already a house on the other lot that they're moving the lot line on. Looking at the picture here.
Yes.
So let's go.
But this is allowing them, yeah, but it's still, everything stays in compliance by them moving.
Correct.
But they own both houses or not?
Yes.
Okay. I would just want to be really, really sure of that before we allow one party to move a lot line.
I know they own both lots.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Jim, you want to make a motion on that one?
I make a motion that we follow the ACC suggestion that we allow for the dividing of 72 and 73 according to the plan presented.
I have a second. Steve, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
One is similar situation. Interior lots 1129 and 1130, or 129 and 131 Comanche Drive East, owned by both lots owned by Jeff and Christine Colbert. Again, they're just requesting to move a property line and have us approve it so they can submit that to Cook County. Go ahead.
Is this on your screens? Okay.
They intend to use lot 1129 for a construct driveway parking area for recreational vehicle. abutting up to lot 1130. Again, both lots will still allow for buildings that and fit architecture control committee rules. I will again make a motion that we accept the architectural control committee's recommendation to approve the division of on lots 1129 and 1130.
Have a motion, we have a second. Randy? We have any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next item we have is facilities, and Clark is going to give us an update on the pavilion.
Thank you. Everybody can see it out there. It's looking really, really good. They're in the staining stages. They have to stain that exterior perimeter timber such that they can put the roof on, the angle iron on this corner. The roof will be delivered probably about a week out. You've also probably noticed they're doing all the work on the inside of the storage room and the bathrooms. All that's going in, the doors are in. Looks really nice. They've also done leveling of the landscaped area, looking for maybe a little rain to help out with there, but we hadn't had it. The sod will be coming here in the next week and a half or so, and they'll start to get laid. Looking really nice. Obviously, we don't need it for July 4th, given the current activities that we're going to look at. Charlie's going to do a little presentation on that in a little bit, but we won't make July 4th, but hopefully a couple, 3 weeks thereafter. Looking really good.
Good, thank you, Mark. Next item is golf committee with Randy.
All right. If you will look, I gave you a little informational sheet that I called golf courses from Oklahoma City to Austin to every course around here, that's to see how they're handling with the governor allowing us to ride with 2 people to a cart. How we can get back to normal with driving to your ball on the golf course, but yet still protect our turf. Because we're right now with 5 golf carts spreading out everywhere. Brian does not feel comfortable. Don't think the turf will hold up all the way through the summer. So golf committee, we talked about what are some possible remedies, and almost, if you look at the sheet, almost everybody is going back to normal with doubling up the carts, giving the opportunity to ride as a single if you feel like you're compromised or don't feel comfortable riding with somebody. But what that does is that puts the number of carts, how many you can have on the golf course in a group, into play. After looking at all this and calling, I think the Denton Country Club kind of had the best deal when we were looking through and talking to them, is that they sent out an email to their members and said, hey guys, it's going to be hard to protect and keep our turf in the shape it's in if we run carts all over everywhere, that we would like to get back to normal if we could. So we encourage everybody to double up from the pro shop. And if you don't feel comfortable doing so, go to the pro and get kind of like we did with our exceptions with our facilities. Go to the pro and ask the pro, hey, can I ride by myself? I really don't feel. And he said, you think that more people would take advantage? He said he's had 2 requests that came out of, and he's been doing it for 2 weeks. He said, because they're members, they want to protect their golf course. He said they take pride, and I think our members take lots of pride in ours too. were going around. So that could be a possibility. Brian and again, he's protective of his golf course. 3 golf carts per group is what he feels comfortable with. That's the rule we've had at Kiowa for the last 20 years. That's all you could do. And you made people double up. But I'm not sure that's the reason we're at the board. We're bringing it here because there are a bunch of places, if you looked, and that allowed 4 golf carts to be in a group and still be able to drive on the turf. If that were to happen, that means there would just be one group that had to double up in a 5-some. Out of 5 people, one person felt comfortable driving with somebody. I'm open to whatever in the golf committee. When we were coming through, we just wanted to try to get back to normals, what everybody was wanting to do, with Brian's recommendation of 3 carts. So everybody's going to have an opinion, and we need to just talk it out and see what's best and go with it. And this doesn't have to be something that's in stone that has to go the next 6 months. We could change something, 2 months, 2 weeks, who knows? Because this is a fluid situation we're in right now. So the put on the agenda to take possible action of changing a rule, but basically our rule pre-COVID was everybody doubled up, even if you had a twosome, you doubled up. But I'm not sure that that's where we want to go right now. I don't feel comfortable telling somebody, hey, you got to ride with me if they really feel like that they could catch the virus. I mean, that's just me. But at the same time, it's fixing to get hot, and I don't want to be walking 50 yards to my ball in the afternoons, or I may not make it. So we got to come up with a compromise somewhere that Brian feels comfortable with, and y'all all feel comfortable with, and our members feel comfortable with. So.
Let me say, I'm not for forcing anybody to get in the same cart with somebody else while we have all these guidelines in place, and as long as we have the situation we have. So I don't want to force anybody down any path. So it's really not that question. I think it's like, what's the question? How do you get on how do you drive on the golf course is really what the question is. So there's different ways we could approach that. So I'll be the first to tell you, I think the day we first faced COVID, my first real board meeting, and we were about to walk into this room and not do anything, and I pushed for doing something like immediately. And we said, okay, let's stop and we'll deal with it again on a meeting 2 days later. And I'll be the first to say I was then the guy a few weeks later saying, let's loosen things up. But in this case, I don't want to be anybody that forces somebody to ride in the cart with somebody else. I do think we can give them a choice. If they want to ride in their cart, they can stay. And if you're a single, or you have more, if your foursome or fivesome has more than 3 carts, then the whole group or 2 of the carts have to stay on the cart path. I mean, I'm fine with either way. I've done some math too. When we went to 10-minute tee times from 7:30 to 4, and there's really not too many tee times after 4. There was in the past, but looking forward, it hasn't been. So that's 51 tee times. And then so in the past, there was 63 tee times. But we also had like 6 shots to space things out anyhow. So it's really not a difference of 63 and 51. Randy probably knows it was really 5 or 6 different tee times with our 10 minutes. So then if we force, or if we're going to say we have 6 foursomes tomorrow. There's 7 foursomes tomorrow as of 2 hours ago. On Wednesday, there are 9 foursomes. There are 0 fivesomes. And on Thursday, there are 15 foursomes and 10 fivesomes. So all I'm saying is that at full capacity, if you're running 4 carts, that's 204 carts. And we could also say 3 is 100. If you're running 3 carts, it's 153. So whatever we decide, we're talking about 50 carts running on the course. Okay. So, and if you do something in the middle, it's something in the middle. And I really think we should follow what Brian says. I mean, I'm for taking care of the course, but I think if we force somebody, then that alternative decision is they stay on the court path. I'd heard different versions of what Randy was explaining from the golf committee, and but he didn't say all of that today because there's different versions floating out there. So
Well, if you limit it to 3 carts, that means a fivesome, 2 carts have to double up. If you have a foursome, it means 1 person has to double up. If you stay with 3 carts, if you go with 4 carts and a foursome, nobody has to double up, and a fivesome, 1 person has to double up.
but we're not going to force anybody, though. I mean, I'm not going to be for anybody doubling up. So we could potentially have 5 carts. And I took a poll. I was with a lot of workers over the weekend for 3 days, so maybe Randy did similar. And to a T, none of them were. I mean, everybody I asked was not for having people ride together. You do want to go on the golf course. I will admit, people want to go on the golf course, but they do not want to be able to ride together. Some people, I have seen some people doing that, but it's not a large majority of people at this point.
Well, you could do something, a compromise in between, but then you get into what's happening because you can tell people if you're in 5 carts, you can't drive on the golf course. If you're going to play in a fivesome, that's fine. But then policing that, your marshal has to be around, and the pro shop gets inundated with phone calls coming in because those guys are driving out there on the golf cart, and that's Brown's. All his stuff is, I don't care what you do as long as I can police it and have control of it. That was Brown. Brian's is, guys, please don't put as few carts on the golf course as you can. The golfing guys, MGA, WGA is, hey, we just want to play golf and we want to drive on the golf course. I mean, you got 3 different entities coming, and we're the ones that have to decide what's best and where we have to go with it. And then everybody's not going to be happy. I can tell you that, whichever way we go. Well, 90-degree rule is what we use anyway. That's getting on the golf course. That's everybody uses 90-degree. So, well, they're supposed to. I mean, if good, yeah, there are some 75s, and that's true. And different golf course superintendents are not on the same page with the 90. Some of you want you at 40 because you don't leave the marks. It's just, and again, that's a personal deal. You can get 2 guys that'll argue about it, 90 versus 40. And, yeah. But see, that's where we get into the 1 cart and 2 carts. Again, with Brown is that if you doubled up in fivesomes, there's still 1 single. So if somebody sees that single and he goes, I don't want to be a single. I mean, you get into a bind there, or a threesome of regulation. That's where it comes in. They went with what Brian said. He said 3 carts and send out and asked everybody 2 people double up, or if you're determined that you have to ride by yourself, then a threesome would be what you'd plan your day accordingly by playing a threesome. But according to what Jim says, if you went with 4 carts, and that's kind of a compromise between Brian and what we're wanting here. If you went with 4 carts, then the 1 guy would have to be saying, hey, I got to double up, or guys, you made the choice today. We play a foursome instead of a fivesome because you will not double up. You're getting that choice. You're getting the choice to ride singles, but now you're making the choice versus single versus a fivesome. Yeah.
I think 4 carts is the way to go because if you're a fivesome and you don't want to double up, like you said, then 4 of you go and 1 of you doesn't. I mean,
That's one of the choices. I know, and it will be unpopular with those 10 groups of foursomes.
Right.
You'll have 10 guys that are going to be upset,
Right,
but you'll have 50 upset if you go with 3 carts probably.
right. So
So I don't know.
I think that's the way to go.
What's wrong with? I'm sorry. Do you have somebody else on?
So if we went with 4, are we saying it's cart path only?
No.
No?
Private golf course, 90 degrees.
So what we're doing is telling Brian that we're going to abuse his golf course. That's essentially what we're saying, right?
Well, Brian says the optimal is 3 carts. 5 carts, he just dies. And again, if Brian says every time it's the members' golf course, I will do whatever. I just recommend. So that's,
That just seems like an awful lot of golf carts on the golf course.
well, I know, but I looked at that and that's what I brought this for.
Oh, and we're staying at 10-minute tee times, right? So that
Which is-
helps a little
that
bit with
helps.
regard to that.
The 10-minute tee times are 100%. I haven't seen anybody that's against the 10-minute tee times. Or nobody's voiced their opinion very loudly. Everybody likes the 10-minute tee times. So, and that does help. See, and I asked, there were on the 4 people, the Wichita Falls Country Club and WinStar, they're allowing guys to drive, and there's 2 different entities. WinStar's got unlimited play, but unlimited money, and Wichita Falls Country Club is more of a direct, smaller crowd. So
I did. Oh,
I just want to make a comment that from an agronomic standpoint, at least for the next 3 months or so, the turf is going to be as good as it's going to get. It's very actively growing right now. Where you leave the cart path, or if you engage some areas where irrigation is sloppy or whatever, you might do some damage. Personally, I think the fairways, as good a shape as they're in, can withstand some traffic. Yeah, I wouldn't be saying that if we were in the, below the 150 number, or if we go into the fall. So I'm just saying for at least the next 3 months or something like that, I just feel like the course would be able to take a little bit more traffic. But I certainly wouldn't recommend going into the fall or something like that. And if you see damage or something beginning to happen somewhere, we can rope it, we could flag it, we could stop it and change it. But I think 4 carts would be possible. And as much as I want to support Brian, I think we also have members that want to get to the ball and speed of play issues. So.
Well, there are members that have been around a long time that told me that when we put this grass in, that it was made to be the hardiest, because we have the most rounds played anywhere in North Texas. That it's supposed to, once it gets above 150, the temperature, Adam again, they're supposed to, not take damage. So again, the personal opinion again, coming around where you're coming from.
I was just going to restate that the numbers, if you do 3 carts on the course over the next 3 days, it would be 153 carts. So if you went to 4 carts, you're talking 204. If you went to 5 carts, you add another 10 carts or 15 carts over 3 days. So it's a big jump there from 3 to 4.
in the superintendent's mind, it's a big jump.
Yeah, it's a big jump.
We start putting
Going
percentages.
to 5 is not a big jump. Going to 4 is a big jump.
As I said, I don't leave it up to you. It doesn't make me any difference. I mean, I can live with both. No.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Does anyone really want or interested in making a motion for which number of carts that we're going to be using here?
Well, I was going to make a motion that we go with 3 carts, but but we don't force anybody to go in the same cart. And if people choose to ride in their own cart, then they're choosing to stay on the cart path above 3 carts. And And we were worried about liabilities in this building earlier, and now we're not worried about liability putting people in the same carts. That's a little.
The governor took the liability out of our hands on the carts.
Okay. And then, yeah, so that's my motion. I mean, I want to drive my ball, but also I'm fine saying that if I'm gonna ride by myself, I get to make a choice. I can stay on the cart path.
You made that in a motion?
Yeah, that's a motion that we go with 3 carts unless you want, but you're free to ride by yourself and go on the cart path, stay on the cart path.
What about that? What about the single?
The single on the
five.
yes, somebody has to stay on the cart path. Okay, don't do it. I don't care. I mean,
That'd only be 3 cars, and now you're asking a single to stay on it with 3 cars.
no, well, first of all, I can guarantee you it's going to be more. It's going to be with an foursome. It's going to often be 5 carts, and a foursome. It's going to be often 4 carts. Often, very often, based on everybody I've talked to. I have not heard any. I've seen one person that are not in the same household buddy up so far. Now I know there's probably some others. I'm not watching the whole course because I don't do that. But
We're going to have to communicate it and ask people to double up to save the course. We just can't. We can't put 5 carts on there. Or in my opinion, we can't.
they can stay on the cart path then.
I know we can't police it. That's Brown's big deal.
If Marshall sees a single person driving on the golf course, he tells them to get off. That's what a marshal does.
Yeah, but he's only there part-time.
Well, I think we've just said our members respect the golf course. So I think for the most part, they will respect the golf course.
Okay, we have a motion from Jim. Okay, do I have a second on it?
My motion would be that if you have more than 3 carts, that the carts that have single riders in them must stay on the cart path.
That'd be everybody then.
It could be, it doesn't have to be. It's their
So
option.
if there's more than 3 carts in a group, you have to stay on the cart path.
The singles.
Everybody.
Well, why would you do that? Because you already allowed a threesome to drive on the course, and now you have 3 carts.
That's where you can't do that. You can't monitor. Threesome, foursome, fivesome. That's where it's impossible to monitor. Good idea. That's giving people the options.
I don't think we have to monitor it personally. I don't think we have to be a police. I think our members that will respect the golf course and will police it themselves and see if people are abusing the rules, they'll report it to other people and the marshals can take care of it. That's my belief. So you don't have to approve the motion. I made a motion.
Yeah, we had a motion. We don't have a second. No second.
Come up with a
Motion
better.
fails. Do we have another motion concerning the golf carts? Steve? Okay,
What is that? Okay.
do I have a second?
No more than 4 carts per team. Right. This is only for a couple of months until we see how everything's going.
I'll second Steve's motion. This is Rick.
No, you can't have 5 carts. No 5 carts.
What if 3 guys disagree and want to ride their own car? Tell them they can't. That's where that comes in.
Yeah.
Well,
You got 5.
if you got more than 1 in a car, 3 of them. That's what I'm trying to say. You got 3 cars with 1 guy in it.
That'd be a threesome.
Well, then you got to play the 5. So you'd have that last
One person, if to play a 5, so 1 person would have to double up. Out of your 5, 1 person has to say, hey, I want to drive on the golf course with you guys. So I'll double up with you, which I don't think that's going to be a problem. But
This will be very,
if we send it out.
that will be very, will be very difficult to administer the booking times for that, because it's not like all those people know when they book their FISM who's going to ride together, and they're not making those decisions. So they have to make those decisions the day of when they show up together. I just find that to be going to be very hard for the groups to deal with.
Have been playing together forever. So I don't think that's gonna be a problem. I mean, the guys that I can climb up with, they're gonna go, I'll ride today.
Yeah,
You ride today.
I think you're probably right. But we need to send it out, make sure everybody knows, yeah, but
Rick second, by the way.
I'll re-second that motion.
Yeah, Rick seconded the motion. Yeah. Any other discussion? We've discussed it quite a bit. No, we've got a motion for 4 and we had a second. We're going to vote. All in favor?
Yes, 93 rules.
Opposed? 2. The motion passes.
And then we start gathering up people.
This is for a limited time.
Yeah, just for a limited time, just check
So we
out.
can figure out what's good to go.
That's it. Yeah. So everything with the golf, the MGA and couples all are, it depends on what time of tournament they're having. Some of them want to go back to tee times. Right in front of my face.
Okay, who's going to put the word out to the golfers as to?
I'll
the
gotta
motion?
send it out I'll get Brown to send it out in his contact with the MGA and Lauren and them to do. Weekly update, he sends it out. Huh? Yes, and I'll get his help. I'll get Brown and Brian to go through and send it out to everybody. Well, no, that said the MGA, WGA and couples discuss shotgun, and they all want to at some time get back to shotgun if it fits the tournament. Some tournaments they want tee times like President's Cup, and so some of them want Wednesday morning. The ladies want to go shotgun because it's too hot in the afternoon. So that's just letting you know, giving you some information.
So with the shotgun, I'm sorry, may I?
Yes.
So with the shotgun, they would get their whole assignment from Brown the night before.
Well, they've got like
So
6
there's no
or 7.
gathering in front of the pro shop.
Yeah, there's 6 or 7 provisions they've put together. Like one person goes and gets the scorecard, one person turns it in, no gathering. They've got it all lined out. The women are real precise. So Brown's got it all.
Okay, well, let's move along. Go ahead.
Seven two.
Okay, the next item is number 9, 2020-2021 budget discussion. Charlie's going to lead us off first off with the benefit changes for the POA employees.
I think we've seen these before, haven't we? Presented these way back when. If I'll go through them pretty quickly. This was recommended by the Human Resource Committee. Rick Walker, can you give me a thumbs up? Can he hear me?
Yep, his thumbs up.
Okay. Okay, good. This is our mission statement here, our charter. Here's the composition of the group. Here's some of the comparison places we looked at: Robeson Ranch, City of Gainesville, TCOG, Windstar, St. Andrew United Methodist Church. Gerald Smith did this chart. Gerald comes from a human resource background, benefits analysis. So he kind of goes, where we're at from that standpoint. Here's really the key issues. What we did is the proposal is to change our full-time hour status. Currently it's 40.0. So, which is kind of a throwback type deal. Most companies have softened up to that number. And we're going to propose a number here later on. 401k retirement plan, we've got a proposal in there. And then time off, we looked at vacation, sick, personal day, and this kind of a quick overall benefit review. To be full-time, what the recommendation was is greater than 37.5 hours per week calculated on a quarterly basis. The employees that are full-time are then eligible for paid time off, holiday pay, and 401k eligibility. So, and actually there's less hours than that to be for 401k eligibility. It's only at 30. What that really does is that, it keeps particularly lodge employees from riding the clock to get their 40 hours. Okay. We schedule them anywhere between 38 and 40 hours. We don't want them standing there by the clock, to make sure they get their 40 hours so they stay productive. The same thing goes for the other departments as well. Hopefully they come in, if they punch in at 7:02, then, they take an hour for lunch, and hopefully they punch out at 4, and they may be short 2/10 or 2/100ths of an hour or something like that. The Affordable Care Act requires insurance to employees averaging greater than 32 hours per week. We're all very familiar with that. Here is something, and this, the rationale behind this is really to get more of our employees tied in with the retirement plan. We're low. I think the last time I checked, we had less than 30 people that were on the retirement plan participating in it. So really the recommendation, and this was already included in the budget that you'll talk about here in a second, would be that the POA grants eligible employees the first 1%, and everybody has an account, and we put money in there. We would then do this current match that we have right now, which is $1 per dollar for the next 3%. So we're hoping to get more people to go into that. We're calculating it could be a potential $20,000 impact next year, and that's already baked into the budget. The eligibility would be the same, and it's got the full-time eligibility and then the part-time bit. This was, I think at least, and Steve was involved, this spanned 3 different meetings to get to this point, to, see if we could get something that made sense. What I will tell you, out in the marketplace, it's all over the board. I mean, there is no standard, it's clearly all over the board. So once again, the first 1% grant would be to make people aware of it, get them in the game, make them start looking at it, and going from there. The time off, that would be moving from a current approach to more of an industry standard of PTO. As best as I can calculate, this is going to be basically cost neutral to us. Okay. Now I think there will be more time off incurred. Okay. Slightly more time off incurred, but for most of our departments like administration, golf, and public works, they just work short people and do it that way. Security is a little bit different story, but so there may be a little bit more incurred there. And then the same thing with the lodge. Currently, we have sick, vacation, and personal day. The proposed is a block of time to use however employee desires. We are going to tighten up that they can only roll over 40 hours per anniversary year, and that must be used within the first 90 days. We have a number of employees that have banked a lot of vacation time, and I think they may have kind of considered, hey, do I use this as a severance policy when I leave and I get paid all of that? Because that's what we've done. Okay. With PTO, it is payable when you leave. Okay. So that's why we really are reducing down the amount of accrual that they can roll over from year to year. But it is more progressive. What the Human Resource Committee looked at is there were several departments, particularly golf and public works, that they effectively used all of their sick time. Okay. They are outdoor jobs, so they may be more inclined to be, exposed to it. There also could be more of a culture of, hey, this is how you use your sick time. Okay. Because some of them have been around for a while there. Here's the PTO proposal. Currently, less than 1 year is really, really kind of old school, with the exception of, boy, it didn't give you any vacation, but it gave you a bunch of sick time. So we would start doing the accrual pretty quickly. It would be 80 hours or basically, 2 weeks of time off. Start accruing right away. And this would accrue according to their anniversary. Okay. We're not changing to calendar year or fiscal year. This is their anniversary. Okay. Then you see, I'm sorry. 1 to 3 years. And that's going to be actually a little bit softer than what they've currently got. And then my pictures are burning the bottom, but you see, on the 3 to 9 years, if you look at the overall days, it's a little bit less, but the bulk of those days are, the sick days at 12. Okay. So those technically are encumbered, by the sick. If you go up to the 10 to 15 year tenure, overall, currently, they would be eligible for 28 days, 12 of which days would be sick. So if you look at it, it's really only 16 that would be total time off, and we would do 25. And then greater than 15 years, which last time I looked, I believe we've got 5 people that are greater than 15 years. So we did this one where it's 30 days. Now, if they just look at that, they go, hey, you're shorting me 3 days. Well, those 12 sick days should have been, encumbered in doctor's notes and actually sick, whereas they get 30 days to use it any way they want to from this standpoint. So that's the proposal there. That was after looking at, those other competitors out there. I wouldn't say that we're on the generous side, but I think we're pretty darn close to what we currently are at if you look at the overall package. It would be calculated based on their anniversary date and then the new program start date. I'm using July 1st, 2020 as an example. I don't think we will use that date. That's too soon from now for us to be able to communicate with the employees, and we'll need to communicate effectively. For all practical purposes, whatever date we choose is relatively irrelevant, okay? Because what you've got to do is you've got to plug in that date, and you look backwards and you look forwards, okay? And there's adjustments made by that. Let me give you an example. If somebody had their anniversary date on June 15th, and they got 2 weeks under the old system, and they used all that 2 weeks before July 1st, and we put the new plan in July 1st, they go, oh, I get all new accrual. No, you used it. Okay. So that's where you've got to look back and look forward on it. And it really kind of starts twisting your mind until you say, okay, I'm going to look at one person at a time and look at this one person and work our way through it. So what our plan will be is, once we decide on what the date is to get a couple of people and look at it and try to make sure we're as objective as possible to be fair with it. So I'm thinking we may start it in August 1st or September 1st, give us plenty of time to communicate to people, and this is how it affects you. Now, some people are going to be high-fiving and jump for joy. They go, wow, all that sick time I didn't take, now I get it as PTO. The people that max out their sick time saying, you took 3 days away from me. Okay. And in effect, it's unencumbered. So the example I put here would be, this is the easiest example to understand. If their program, if we started on July 1st, and their anniversary was 6 months from now, they would get a portion of that year, because they would get, a half of their year. And then they get when they cross over to a 10-year, then they would get additional stuff. So that's where it gets a little complicated. I've spent hours studying it. I think we'll figure it out, and it'll be just fine. One of the recommendations that the committee made would be, there's some people that are going to give up a pretty good amount of sick time. Okay, we have it's over $100,000 of accrued sick time out there. Okay. One of the thoughts of this group would be to say, hey, do we want to kind of make some people feel better if we do a token payment? The group, that committee said they recommended 10%. that'd be $11,436. And that's without me taking a payout. I would forego any payout, say, don't need to pay me for that. 5% would be a $5,718 impact. It ranges from $2 to one person up to $523 for somebody who hasn't taken a lot of sick time and who's fairly highly compensated. It averaged $130 per person. This is optional. This is not required. I know there are some companies that do things like this to, help ease the transition there. So that's just a thought process. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I got a dry throat there. So here's kind of the decision points here in the total cost, the 401k we're forecasting would be about $20,000 over the next 12 months. So I guess it'd be $30,000 over the next 18 months that we're talking about. That's baked into the budget. The conversion to PTO approach, I'm saying we don't think it's going to hit us directly in the income statement on a going forward. If the board wants to do a token payment of either 11,436 or 5,718, that would be the impact. That would also hit us in the current fiscal year. That's something we'd realize in the current fiscal year. Clark did show you a number earlier. Anybody remember what his number was, kind of a forecast on the bottom line? It was about, I think 92.
92,
Okay.
yeah.
I think some of that is going to be spent down this month. I'm thinking we're probably going to be in the $30,000 to $35,000 range. A lot of it depends on what happens with the lodge. And quite frankly, the lodge sales the last couple of weeks have been strong. Okay, so we're getting closer to budget. It also, we did get the road sealed in between there. There's some stuff we got to pay. Okay, so I think we'll buy down some of that. So the overall, all of these things here would be a $31,128 potential impact. So how do you want to go about doing it? It's included in the budget that we're getting ready to approve. So I think from that standpoint, I'd like for you all to consider it.
Sam, this right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Hey, two things. So when Charlie said what day we picked to make the transition to PTO, he kind of, for the budget wise, that doesn't matter. For the employees, it probably does. So I think a little longer transition time, maybe even the start of maybe the fourth quarter or something like that, which would be October 1. That way we communicate with them. Here's an example. Let's say somebody has a whole bunch of vacation time accrued, and maybe they want to go have a knee replacement surgery or something. They can choose to do that and use a lot of that accrued vacation. So other things, sick pay, people may want to be sick, I guess, if they know they're going to lose it. So I think for the employees, that's a good thing. And then we have had situations in the office due to the loss of an accountant where people have had to work, where they really couldn't take time off. And now they're faced with losing vacation days simply because they had to work. They had to be there. And so that was, that we want them to be there when we need them. And so if we give them a few more months here to even that out, that way they're not at risk of losing actual vacation days.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Jim Adams.
There's a few questions I had because you were blending several things here. So first of all, what are you proposing is that distinguishes full-time and part-time, and does that number apply to both 401k, medical, and vacation? seems like we should use a consistent number across all of them. But maybe we are. I'm not clear.
Well, they're not, and part of it is the ACA requires it at, where is that on the slide? Yeah, the ACA requires 32 for insurance. So that's one number that we have to comply with. Okay, 37.5 is really for. I had that right here. That's for PTO and holiday pay. Okay, in this 401k eligibility, that's not correct on there. We make that. Oh, shoot.
1,000 hours is what your slide said.
Yep, there you go, right there. Thank you. That is part-time employees are eligible for the 401k, and that's eligible after 1,000 hours with 1 year. So we want to, it's kind of different. Okay. The most expensive benefits we offer would be paid time off, holidays, and medical. Okay. Now 401k is probably the least expensive because it's the 1% and then the dollar for dollar matching. So I think that's why the numbers are split up, and they have been split up for us. So does that answer your question? I don't know that we can get
Well,
to.
you said, so you're saying average, you just have to average over a quarter, over 37.5 hours, or at or above 37. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Which comes to about 1,000 hours, basically. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, no, the
Okay.
the 1,000 hours, well, the 37.5 is weekly average on a quarterly basis. The 1,000 hours would be 1,000 hours over a year. So that would be like, yeah.
50%. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 50%.
Roughly.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's just the way it's worded here. It's confusing. And then my next question, do we currently have a written policy that says employees can carry over time? And that's one question. And the second follow-up to that is, are we carrying that as a liability on our books each year now?
Yes, and we currently have a policy that allows them to carry it over. I'd have to pull it up and look to quote it to you. And we do carry it on our balance sheet as a liability, and it's adjusted in the audit on an annual basis. So, and Rick brought up a good point. One of the things we have done is given people a heads up 3 or 4 months ago is, if I were you, I'd start moving down and taking your vacation. And we've had a lot of vacation taken. There is a circumstance, particularly that he mentioned, where it's a small department and somebody's been out, and that's something that I think we could do with this time, or manage with an exception as well, because most of the vacation accrual overall has dropped fairly dramatically. We are proposing to tighten it up, okay, very considerably, because what the behaviors we've seen is people not to take vacation and build it up, or they may take sick, which is non-payable out, and bank their vacation. And so that's what we're trying to get away with the PTO, and move it towards this. So, but yes, we do have a current policy, and I'm sorry, I can't remember it. I have to dig out the sheet and look at it, and I can do that offline with you. But this is substantially leaner with the amount that they can roll over, and it also requires them to do it within 90 days. I think everybody knows the overarching kind of idea behind most of paid time off is to utilize it, in the time frame when it's granted for uses at that point, so you're not working sick and you're refreshed. So you have another question?
Yes. So no, I appreciate, I don't need to see the policy. I just wanted to make sure, confirm that we actually had something written.
We
If
do.
we do, fine.
Yeah.
So on the, why, I don't see the necessity. I don't want to, like Rick said, I don't want to penalize any employee for any transition we're making as far as anything they have banked, and that kind of thing. But I don't understand why we can't just say there is no carryover. Why do you need to carry? I mean, you can get it done inside the current calendar year or fiscal year, either way you want to put that, and that there could be exceptions based on management approval, but I understand the necessity for a rollover of any kind. You're just creating another problem of liability rolling into the next period. And people can just plan.
Yeah. Rick, you're on the HR committee. Steve, you're on the HR committee. Do you have any comments for how that came about?
Well, I do think some situations are going to be necessary to allow rollover. And again, a lot of it depends with crunch time. I think of my jobs in the past where things were due at the end of the year. We just couldn't, take all our vacation right there in the last, because it required it. Accounting may be very similar, whatever. So I think there are situations where some rollover provisions are appropriate, and it just allows people to manage their lives better, and the employees may be a little headache to deal with, but I don't think it's anything unusual for businesses to allow that and to be able to deal with it.
You still have to plan either way. And so you still have to manage it and plan for it, whether it's a 90-day rollover or not. So I don't understand, again, the extension period. And management needs to manage it, and that asks people to plan it. And if they don't do it properly, you don't roll it over. Now, what's on the books already, I think we should take care of.
Yeah, life's not always that simple, though, in situations.
Well, no, but that's where I agree. But then there can be management exceptions, and management can deal with that. If management would cause the person not to be able to take their vacation timely, then management can also extend it.
Yeah, but not all managers manage the same. So it's better to have it kind of written down rather than rely on any type of exceptions.
Any other comments? What do you need from us, Charlie, as far as for tonight? Is this included in the budget we're going to be voting for?
Yes.
Okay.
So Sam asked about the sick conversion. That will not affect the future budget. That would be booked in the current fiscal year. So what you vote on tonight would be go into the current fiscal year. And as Clark said earlier, he was showing the potential of we're sitting on a surplus of about 92,000. I think some of that is timing of budget items. I would think that we may be in the $30,000 to $40,000 surplus range. So I think we could afford this. Okay. The HR committee recommended the $11,436 as a sign of good faith. So that would affect this current, fiscal situation. What we would need to vote upon would be the recommendation of the 401k, and then the 37.5. Let me go back to the sheet here. The full-time status, 37.5, the retirement plan recommendations of the committee, and then the PTO recommendation of the committee. So you could vote on them independently, or you could put them all together. It's up to you.
Clark.
Just commenting on a couple of these issues, on Jim's issue of the rollover. Maybe things have changed. I guess I retired about 5 years ago. Prior to retirement, I was always in a PTO situation as far as I can remember. And I was always able to roll over 5 days. I've always had that. Of course, I was always a long time. I was over 15 on almost every one of those situations. So I had lots of, I don't think you can take 30 days of vacation or sick a year. That's just impossible. It's really hard. The second thing is, and I'd also serve on the HR committee.
Oh, that's right.
So when we look at the 11,000, understand that your sick accrual right now, which is like Charlie's saying, that's going to get taken care of in the current fiscal year. So that's going to happen before June 30. And your current accrued liability there is about $120,000. So there's going to be a substantial adjusting entry for that accrual at in the audit. And that entry is going to be about $109,000 entry somewhere. It's a non-cash entry, but that accrual will have to be written down with that adjustment. So you're paying 11 for 120.
So if we have then employees will not have any accrual, they will not have accruals anymore. These goes to no,
That's correct, but you're talking about sick, not vacation.
yeah, it's just sick.
There's no rollover of sick day. Right?
No, there,
That's just-
actually, that's the bigger issue that we're going to, because sick time has an extensive, currently it has an extensive rollover. We have people up to 480 hours of accrued sick time. So yeah, that's max. So that's really, what we're getting away from. In that case, we do offer at the employee's expense their ability to get long-term disability. Okay. And that's, from 480 hours, that's really kind of in the long-term disability type range. There are also other AFLAC policies that are available for them to purchase, at their expense. One of the things we haven't really mentioned in here, which is something that is a good benefit or great benefit for employees, is the medical policy kicks in. Medical insurance kicks in after 32 hours, and it's $12.50 a week in premium. So that's very, very favorable there. But we feel like some of that is offset with the wage level that we have, and it's really it's all over the board out there with medical premiums. I mean, everything is completely different. City of Gainesville pays for the employees' medical premiums. The employee didn't contribute at all. Yep. So that's what they had to do to compete against the likes of Windstar and everything else. So, okay.
I think we need to take these one at a time. There's not enough detail here on all of them. So
Steve,
on the committee, we had 2 HR guys who had done this. And so we're using their recommendation on what should be done. Okay, we're not just shooting from the hip. The HR guys had taken where we are and gone to the PTO and had suggested this is the way to go at it. So I think we're doing the right thing. And as Charlie said, he's let everybody know, use up your vacation because this is coming down the road. So that's my input.
okay, after hearing Charlie's presentation, does anyone want to provide a motion on this?
I'll make a motion that we accept his position of part-time. That's one of the items.
Full-time.
Full-time, yeah. In fact, can we take, I'm going to break these down to fully understand them. So I would like to make a motion that we accept 37.5 hours as full-time calculated quarterly or averaged quarterly. And that's for the purpose of PTO. Is that for the purpose of PTO, Charlie?
Yeah, you're cutting out, Jim.
Is that for the purpose of PTO?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Am I cutting out? Okay. The top bullet point is PTO. The second is holiday pay. They're automatically going to qualify for the 401k because of that. Well, no, actually they wouldn't. Okay.
Right.
So
It's
they
not-
would, yeah, they would be, yes, they would be 401k because they are hired as full-time. Okay. So when we hire somebody, we either hire somebody full-time, part-time, or seasonal. Okay. And the seasonal are typically 3 or 4 months and they have the lowest level of benefits. Then part-time, that's where you could be eligible. You earn your way into the 401k after 1,000 hours. Okay. So in this case, for full-time status, what applies here is PTO, holiday pay, and then they become eligible for the 401k.
So let me ask a
Charlie,
question.
Charlie, this is Rick.
Yeah.
When you have the 401k eligibility, that's for the 1% automatic contribution by the POA. They become eligible at 1,000 hours to put money into it. But to get the 1% automatic from the POA, they have to be full-time. That's why you have that third bullet there.
Well, and actually, if you go to page 42 of your packet, let's do that. It might be easier to look at your packet than the screen. So there's 2 different levels, okay? And so if you go in the middle part, it says full-time. Full-time employees, if they're hired full-time, okay, and this is another rabbit trail, is some full-time employees are hired salary, other full-time employees are hired hourly. Okay. In this case, it's really only the hourly people that we're worried about declaration of full-time status, because if you're an exempt employee, you're on salary, you're eligible. But anybody who's full-time, they are eligible after their first 90 days. Now, does that get them the 1,000 hours? I can't even remember. So no, that doesn't get them the 1,000 hours. Okay. So the 1,000 hours would be for part-time people. The employer's contribution would be vested after 1 year service. Okay. Part-time, if you're hired and we check the box on your status form that you're part-time, you're eligible after you get 1,000 hours within 1 year. So if you get 1,000 hours on, the 365th day of your employment year, then you're eligible for the 401k. Now, Rick brought up a point, and I think the way I interpreted it is anybody who was eligible for the 401k, whether they're full-time or part-time, would get that grant. So there are some part-time people that could be eligible after 1,000 hours that would get it. Now they are typically on the server staff and things like that. So it's less overall money, and a 1% would be less. So now, Rick, I can't remember if we exactly split it, and that's when it gets complicated, like you said, because there's different benefits and you're coming at them from different angles.
Right. Charlie, my recollection is that we specifically said the 1% would apply to those only ones that are full-time.
Okay. We can do that.
So part-time employees are not in the 401k is what we're saying.
No, that's not right, Jim.
I'm asking. I don't know.
They are in the 401k after they reach 1,000. Okay. this new 1% grant we're making is only for those who are full-time, the 37 and a half hours.
Okay, so if you go back to slide 41, and I can't change it on the screen, I don't know what's full-time status, average greater than 37.5 hours per week, calculated quarterly. They're eligible for PTO, holiday pay, and 401k eligibility after 90 days or 1,000 hours of service in a year. 1 year. So it'd be the sooner of those two, earlier of those two. Does that make sense? So that covers.
It makes sense. So now so just so
Yeah.
I understand, sorry, I'm naive, but it's not all the details here. So we have employees that could be part-time in the 401k, but that they're not going to have anything to do with this 1% bonus. Is that doesn't seem right to me? Or I'm misunderstanding something.
That is what the committee recommends, that the 1% automatic would apply to full-time, those that are full-time.
Okay, and can we talk about page 41 and put that part aside till we get to the 401k? So are we okay with the full-time status as I outlined it just a minute ago? Do you want to vote these one at a time?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was my motion.
Okay.
Jim has a motion on there. We have Steve seconds. Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, everybody in favor of the motion? Okay, motion passed. Anybody opposed? The motion did pass. Okay. Okay, what's the second one, Charlie?
Second one would be page 42. And you've got the recommendation, and this is the recommendation of the HR committee. And I wrote in, so the recommendation would be the LKPOA grants first 1%, and I'll put in brackets full-time only, 1-to-1 match for the next 3%. And then I put the overall impact. So then underneath here, where we kind of got it broken out, full-time would be the 1% grant, and the part-time is just a 1-to-1 match. Rick, does that sound?
We're really giving 4% to a full-time employee for putting in 3%. Okay.
That's the bottom line. Yep. And
sorry, it's just worded really strange here. So.
Right. And Jim, key to remember is a low percentage actually contribute that 3%.
Yeah.
Makes it 4.
Do I have a motion on that?
I make that motion that we approve that the 401k retirement plan, the POA grants the first 1% and matches the next 3 on full-time employees.
Steve, second. Any more discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passed. Third one is what, the PTO?
Yeah, the PTO, and if you look at the schedule is on page 44 and 45. The right hand, you see the proposal, that's the schedule. And there's also There's also that they can roll over 40 hours per anniversary year, and that must be used within 90 days. So that's what the HR committee recommended. I know there was some different opinions on that, so I think we'll have to vote on that.
We have a motion on the PTO proposal.
I'd make that one. That we approve PTO as recommended.
Clark makes a motion. Steve second. Any more discussion?
Yeah,
Jim?
so we're only rolling over. What are we rolling over? It says it's just PTO now. From now on, with this policy in place, we're going to only allow PTO, which includes sick, will no longer be sick, vacation, or personal days. It's all one thing.
Yes.
Yes. So just to repeat, so anybody can hear, my question was, what do we allow to roll over? Which is just the word PTO is what we're allowing, which used to be after this policy goes into place, sick, vacation, and personal. Now it's just called PTO.
Okay. So what and Rick, correct me if I'm wrong here, the thought process is that they would be able to roll over 40 hours of vacation. What the time off formerly known as vacation into the new PTO program. Then going forward with the renewal of their anniversary date every year, they would only be able to roll over 40. Okay. They're not able to roll over any of the sick time. That goes away, and the next thing you would vote on would be the transition dollar amount, and that's a small courtesy for it, but that is a good clarification there. Okay, when we were putting together the slides, I think Gerald and I both worked on this deck here. It made sense to the group because we were talking about that. And Steve or Rick, if you want to chime in on it. So I think that was the intent of it. Okay. Rick did throw out a date there of October 1st. I think that's very reasonable. How we get there, because the payout's going to kind of, that kind of changes the payout there, because we talked about doing it this fiscal year. So I think that's something that
I think that's why my questions matter, is when we're talking, because we got to decide what I have to understand what this is so I can help decide what the payout should be. So I don't think my question's answered still, which is, it used to be 3 categories of time: sick, vacation, and personal day, and it's now called PTO starting this next fiscal year. Is it's just a question? Is it a yes or no?
the answer to the question, the way you ask it, is no. So
Okay.
what we originally, when this was started by the HR committee back in February, the original thought was it would be able to facilitate a July 1 transition date. COVID virus got involved, blah, blah, blah. So I actually dropped the ball on some of it because we were preoccupied with other stuff. This was originally contemplated with a July 1st date. Okay. So I think that's something that that does complicate it now that you bring that up. Because if we do it on October, then we can't actually do the transition pay, within this fiscal year. So I think that might be something that we have to look at down the road, and not vote on the transition pay tonight and say, let's vote on the PTO, and then we can see how the fiscal year finishes out, what type of actual surplus is there. And then at the time we decide to implement it, if there is funds available, we could do that for the transition, or we don't have to do any transition. We could just say this is what it is.
Charlie,
Yeah.
Charlie, this is Rick. So I think the impact is essentially identical, because if you take $11,000 this year and we wind up with a $30,000 surplus, the alternative is to not take the $11,000 this year and wind up with a $41,000 surplus.
Correct.
Which we can use 11,000 out of to pay for that transition.
Well put.
Right.
Still haven't got my question. Can I ask my question one more time? Because I don't.
You keep waking up, Jeff.
My question one more time is,
In the past, before this policy on PTO was implemented,
number
three
three,
categories were not
vacation, personal days. And based on how you answer, I guess I'll ask another question.
Yes, true.
So now there's just PTO. So now going forward, only 40 hours per year will be allowed to roll over. Not counting
The transition period that we have coming up, but a year now, I'm thinking this will be like
Yes.
okay. So then that's the financial liabilities that are on the so we can and how we're going to pay that out. I'm fine. So
I think we have a motion for Clark concerning the PTO. It's already been, we have a second by Steve. Do we have any more discussion on the PTO? If not, everybody in favor?
All in favor?
Anybody opposed? No. Motion carries. We're gonna hold off on the transition.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, the next item.
oh, can I ask a question about that? Please.
It's 111. You take.
Okay.
So it's $114,360 because 10% would be 11,436. Yeah. So Clark said 120. It's 114 ballpark. It's so I think it actually came to.
June's not there yet.
And
that's a guess.
Well, you got people dropping off and dropping on. I mean,
That's a guess.
yeah, this is a moving target. I mean, it's that ballpark. So
That's sick only.
that's sick only.
Any questions, Jeff?
Okay.
Yeah. Because but not there's so many angles on this. So we have vacation time that could be rolled over in the past, and that's not a liability.
We do have vacation time that's been rolled over in the past. And as we said earlier, we've strongly encouraged people to take their vacation time. And we've had a flurry of vacation time taken this spring to get the accruals down. Okay. Now, once again, is that reloads every anniversary, every time an employee rolls over with an anniversary date. My anniversary was June 1st. My account just got replenished and I actually am rolling over 40 hours. So I use mine down to the 40 hours. So it's,
But
yeah.
if I could have a bank of 200 hours out there or more from the past, if you didn't take your vacation the last 5 years. Bank.
Yeah. And I forget what the cap was. I don't know that it was 200. The sick pay was the one that had a really, really high cap at 480 hours. Okay. And that's really what we're trying to address with this. And actually, hang on here a second.
So we have $20,000 because we have a vacation liability.
Correct.
120,000 is a sick time liability. That's all I've been trying to dig to, guys.
Okay, we ready to move on now to the budget? Next one is discuss and take possible action on the budget. I know we've had the budget hearing and we talked about the budget. Do we have anything to add to our discussion on the budget tonight before we approve it? Clark?
Do we have anyone that is expressed via our publication in the communique or between our town hall or anything, any issues that we may have?
Do we have any questions there tonight concerning the budget there?
On the membership.
On the membership?
No questions directly related to the budget, besides the questions that we dealt with last Wednesday evening. So there's been no further questions raised.
I move we approve the budget as we have.
We have a motion, second by Randy. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. The next one is discuss and take possible action on clarification of lodge pricing decision. You know, this came up in a question that we had last week. So we'll try to get an answer to that at the same time we're doing the discussion concerning the pricing at the lodge. And I think Charlie has a question that we had that came in, and we'll kind of take up on this.
Are you talking about the questions from this week or from the
last week?
No, I didn't bring them with me, but it was two members. One made a proposal that the Lodge and Tavern provide their decision on lodge pricing and it go to the board and get voted on by the board. And the other one was like, lodge prices have gone up three times over the past 6 years. And I think that was the gist of it. So, and I think there was some emails that went back and forth amongst the group. What has been done prior to me coming here, when I came here, I started as a lodge manager, and the community manager at that time said, let me know what you want to do. It's your call, and we'll go through it. And we've done that several times throughout. This last time there was some pushback from the Lodge and Tavern. The decision was made by me because we had fallen well behind the budget. Cost of goods sold had gone up dramatically, and restaurants out in the public space raise prices on a regular basis. So that's why I did it. So as far as I was concerned, I had the right to do that. It's not something we do very often. We've really only gotten feedback from those two people on here. We sent out a constant contact back at the end of January and got virtually no feedback at it. And we got very little feedback in the restaurant, in the lodge. So.
Yep.
When this came up, I just asked that if there was a written policy on it, and it was Charlie just mentioned historically. Make sure I got my thing set here. Yeah, it should be. Can you hear me? Okay, I guess I have to face forward. As I said, when it came up in our budget meeting the other day, I just asked if there's a written policy, and I didn't hear that there was one, and Charlie mentioned it was historical. I have heard that there has been a board in the last several years since Charlie's been here that did tell him that, that needed to go before the board too, and he had changes in the lodge menu. So I've heard different things. So I'd like to just go ahead and make it official and give Charlie that ability. So I'll put it in the form of a motion that the Lake Kiowa Board of Directors grants the Lake Kiowa POA manager along with lodge management to make menu changes and menu price changes based on their judgment and expertise. Furthermore, Lake Kiowa Board would like to reserve the right to also make menu changes and menu prices based on information and recommendations from the Lodge and Tavern Committee and or the Lake Kiowa POA manager. And that just gives Charlie the flexibility to do things, but also allows us to hear recommendations and work with Charlie to make changes.
We have a motion before us. That was a motion you was making there.
It was a motion, yes.
Okay, we have a motion before us. Do we have a second?
Could you restate the second portion of that motion when you talked about? Just read, just say that, please. Read. Yeah, please.
I move that the
Lake Kiowa Board grant the Lake Kiowa POA manager along with management
to make menu changes and menu price changes based on their judgment and expertise. Furthermore, Lake Iowa Board would like to reserve the right to also make menu changes and menu prices changes based on information and recommendations from the Lodge and Tavern Committee and or the Lodge and or Lake Iowa POA manager.
Again, do we have a second? We don't have a second on the motion. The motion will not pass. So we have any other,
I will argue that he doesn't have the authority to make changes on the menu. Without our approval.
do we have any other comments? Any other comments on this particular issue?
Pam is right.
Go ahead, Rick.
Okay. I think I'm getting feedback from Steve, Mike, maybe.
We don't have a
Written policy, then I
Rick.
don't know where he gains that authority.
Hang on, Jim.
Yeah, hang on, Jim. Rick has got the floor.
Okay, so the problem with Jim's motion, as I see it, is you've given two entities the same authority. Who decides when they conflict?
Ultimately, the board decides.
I don't want to be involved in how much corn dogs cost. Yeah, there are more better things to do.
Okay, then make an adjustment to the amendment. But we have to give him authority somehow.
I think if the issue, this is my opinion, I think if the issue has to do with pricing, that Charlie is the community manager and we have a manager here at the lodge are more familiar with the cost of food and et cetera than either maybe people on a committee or even us as a board. And that as a manager, that's what we're paying him for, to be able to come up with if prices need to be raised, prices need to be raised. So I think it's community manager's decision along with the lodge manager, my opinion.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I think we just should document that. It's not documented anywhere.
Steve had his hand up.
Here's my concern. Charlie has the expertise. How long is Charlie going to be here? The next manager in, community manager, may not have a clue what it takes to raise prices, whether I should raise prices, whether I do this, whether I do that. I don't think we want to give the community manager carte blanche on this. I think there needs to be a control, just like there is in every other committee, that there's the ability for the committee to make suggestions, and then it comes to us, and then we make a vote on it. I'm not saying that Charlie is very knowledgeable and makes good decisions, but I'm worried about the future. I'm not worried about Charlie. Does that make sense? Did I get my point across? There's got to be checks and balances in our community. And what we're doing is taking that away. And I think that's dangerous.
Anyone else comments?
I think what Steve said.
It gives Charlie full approval and it gives us the ability to make overrides if we have to.
Jerry?
How many times has it changed in the last 5 years? Was it every 2 years?
I think 3 times. Can you hear me?
2 years?
No, that would be over I thought you said 5 years. It may be 4 times max over 6 years. So it's not a lot. I think one of the things, I understand the price sensitivity here. I think that the lodge receives tremendous subsidies. And what I did with the last price was to try to steer the subsidy back to where the budgeted amount was. So I think that everything everybody said has merit. Okay. It is not fun to make a decision to do like that, knowing that everybody wants it. Everything is cheap. I think we took extensive time and looked at the prices, and a Miller Lite at $2.25 and happy hour in 2020 is a pretty good price. So I think we have been sensitive to that, but whatever the board wants to do, I think is fine. I will tell you that you've got to be careful with the committees to make sure that they're not serving their interest only, and they're looking at the best interests of the community. And I think that virtually anything that you all vote on funding for needs to be looked at across the greater good of the community. Okay. And I think an example would be golf course expenditures. Lots of people use the golf course. Okay. So that's spread fairly widely. So I think that's just the key. So I think Jim brings up good points. I think Steve brings up good points. But I would caution you, if you strictly left it to the lodge and tavern, beer prices at $1 is unsustainable, and your subsidy is going to grow enormously. And if you look at the subsidies, there's been 6 or 7 years ago, we subsidized at $500,000, and the lodge was bleeding red ink, okay, and cutting into it dramatically. Now we're about in the $300,000 range, and that's what we had budgeted. When I raised prices back then, is because we were the wrong direction from the budget. Interestingly enough, cost of goods sold, the percentage is improved, and it's right where it needs to be. So however you want to craft that, I'm fine with it. If you want me to come to the board, I don't, and I think Jim was trying to, accommodate that. I do think it would be uncomfortable if you went with the lodge and tavern over the community manager. That's going to be a friction point with me, because it's not something that we do on a regular basis. I think that's what Jerry was bringing up. We're not doing it every 3 months or every 6 months. It's been a while. And that's what Gerald Smith said back when he was president 2 presidents ago. We need to do this a little bit more regularly, so there were smaller increases. So.
Well, Charlie, I mean,
Steve,
points. Sorry.
go ahead, Steve.
I'm not in any way trying to say the lodge and tavern makes those decisions. That's not it. Lodge and tavern just makes suggestions. That's the way it's chartered. They don't have any control over prices or any of that. So I'm not saying that at all.
Jim?
Thank you. Again, I think the motion states that and Charlie faces conflict with this board from time to time, as it is. And faces conflict with committees all the time. That's what he has. So he's going to have to just deal with that if that comes up. But I'm trying to give him the authority to do this and have this board do that. And I'm only leaving us a way to make operating decisions, which financially we always have anyhow, because we can bring up anything we want to in a meeting. So just trying to clarify it is all it really does.
Yeah.
That's what Steve says. It's accommodating both past and every other committee we have. It's just recommendations from the committees. We had a golf committee recommendation. We didn't take it exactly. They took something different. It's just the way it works because decisions.
I think the charter, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, the charter for the Lodge and Tavern Committee says that they will advise the board. Yeah, there is no decision making saying this is how much you should charge. I think as long as there's an understanding that would be the thing.
And
That's what my motion says. It says that the board could make menu changes and price changes based on informations and recommendations from the lodge and tavern.
But what I see there though is that the manager comes up with a price and the Lodge and Tavern Committee comes up with a price. We're going to have conflict when it comes to the board.
Yeah, we had a conflict today when we had to talk about the golf committee came up with a plan. And Randy said one, golf committee, Steve made another recommendation, and I made a recommendation. Come on, that happens. We have to make decisions on this board. And I'm trying to give Charlie
decisions.
Okay, well, the motion that you brought forth did not receive a second. Now, do we have anyone else that would like to make a motion that may clear this up? Steve?
I don't have a motion. Hold on, let me see if I'm on. Yes. What I'm saying is, where we are is, why do we need this? We don't need another motion. It's already working. This is the way it is. He has the control. The Lodge and Tavern has no control over him. So I don't understand why we're trying to do this to begin with. That's it.
Because he can make price changes to the menu without this board's approval. And he has not given that authority anywhere in any documentation that we have. Not giving that authority. And also allows the committee to make recommendations.
Don't act like this the next time a menu change comes up. I will get my menu board, I'm gonna bring it up to the board and say,
And then we're gonna have to approve that menu change because he doesn't have that authority.
Charlie?
Call on Rick first. He's got his hand
Yeah,
up.
Rick, go ahead.
Let's see. Yeah, we give Charlie lots of authority to run this community, and we don't spell out every little detail of it. So, I mean, he buys and sells stuff all the time, and so I don't think we need to spell out every little detail. I'm with Steve. It's working the way it is. Let's just leave it like that.
And I may have
Go
the
ahead,
floor.
Steve. Charlie, I'm sorry.
The other Steve. I don't know if I have the official ability to do this, but it's 9:10 at night. Why don't we table this one? I think there's lots of good points rolling around, and I'll throw in I will not raise prices between now and the next meeting. Okay, is that could you note that in the minutes, please? Okay. I will go on record of saying that I won't change anything, and I think that let's look at it with a fresh mind, because we started off we started off with a long segment this meeting, and we've still got some stuff to cover. So I think Jim brought it. I think that's great. I think what he's trying to do is fine. I think we can work within that. We can come up with something within the framework, because I do think Steve's comments are good as well, that I don't want to be here when I'm 90 years old. Okay, so I think that's good, and I think it should be something put in with the mechanism. And it might be that we agree to review it on a every 6 months basis, and that way then it's done on a topical basis. So would
Okay.
somebody?
We'll just table this item then. Is everyone in agreement on that? Okay, let's go to additional business.
Well, you skipped me.
Oh, okay, Charlie. Yeah.
Now okay, after the acting president, Alexander Haig, skipped over me here. So my community manager's report, financial, somebody's got their speaker on. Would they mind shutting that off? Okay. Financial, this number I told you earlier, possible surplus of $30,000. I wrote this last week. Could be a little bit better. I looked at the lodge performance over the weekend. Who knows? Drainage, we've compiled the list. It stopped raining. Few people are calling me about drainage right now. They're calling me, please, could we have some rain? But I would like, if anybody's interested, to get a couple of you all to do an informal kind of an ad hoc committee to look at the drainage project. So I think that's something Jim or somebody had mentioned before. We're at that point of trying to get that together. So you have a couple of volunteers that would offer to look at that. Nobody raising their hand? We did, and they're kind of focused in on some of the other aspects of preventing silt and not just so much drainage projects. So I think Clark raised his hand. Is that right? Did you volunteer? Okay, so that's a good start. Okay. Okay, Sam and Jim. Okay. And we'll make it informal to begin with and go. Communicate, ad sales continue to be strong. I think you did have some people pull out a little bit. No, it's still going. Okay, great. We talked about the bridges last time. This will be done in August when we have the course shut down for 2 days to do that. The lodge, I didn't really update that one. This is actually a better number. The tables are currently at 50% and properly spaced. It's getting to the 75% number is next to impossible in maintaining that 6 foot. And, you know, that's really what's happening out there in the industry. I mean, that 75% is kind of a fake number, because how can you do that and keep those 6 foot spacings there? But the lodge is coming back. I mean, we talked earlier about some of the groups that want to come in and do it. And we actually exceeded our budgeted sales numbers 3 out of the last 4 days. Okay. So that's good. That's good news there. The public works staff has got a bunch of crack seal to do. Unfortunately, we are short staffed on public works. So if you have any kids or grandkids that want to work summer jobs, send them my way. We need help with that. The sealing and the striping, I think I don't think the sealing and striping is done, and I think it looks great. I've gotten many compliments on that. I think the road crews were generally very professional, and we're able to get in and get it done well. So safety and security, we're still working on the guardhouse ideas. The electronic forms overall are working well. We are generating an exception list for the non-techie people on Guest Pass. We've got 3 people that we know of right now that we're assisting with that. They're able to call in their Guest Passes. If you know of anybody else, you know, send their information to me and we will work with them. Okay. So we've got a system in place and we're processing through that. The rest of them is working generally pretty darn well. And the number of Guest Passes that are being sent in over the internet is substantial. July 4th. This is something that this is what where we're sitting at today. And I don't know if you've done it, gone out and looked. I've sent it to certain people in terms of what's going on in the Metroplex out there. Dallas has canceled everything related to July 4th. Everything. Okay. I think Dallas has a lot on its plate. Okay. So that makes sense with Dallas. Plano has canceled everything but the fireworks, and they've altered their fireworks to another location and raised the elevation so more people can see it. And of course, they're recommending practicing social distancing. Fort Worth has canceled everything but the fireworks. South Lake has canceled everything. Okay, so they've canceled everything. Frisco is still showing a 4th of July full event with a wiener dog races and hot corny dog eating contest. And I just don't understand, but that's what they've got right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they cancel that, but that's what we've got. We know right now. The opening ceremony, we're going to involve the American Legion, going to be socially distanced, 6 feet out apart out there. Do you have an addition to that? Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Nothing else. Yeah. Air show shut down, party shut down, the whole 9 yards. Yes, sir. Yep. Love for him too. We did consult with the chapel choir and ask them if they wanted to come, and it was an overwhelming no. Okay, so that's a group that's taking this very seriously and making sure that they're staying there. The golf cart parade, what we're trying to do is socially distance. There has been a discussion about spreading out the route. My course marshals were not a big fan of that. Okay, so we're going to have to do some helping. And Jerry, can you help me with the head course marshal? See if we can get him to stretch out the route a little bit. Okay, so he's very hard-headed. Okay, so he's very hard-headed, but we're trying to stretch out the route and make longer and for more distance between the carts and spectators. No items should be thrown whatsoever. And we've got to really try to do that. I think, Kathy, if you could also get with the CERT team and see if some people, and what I'd like to do is have the marshals kind of be the traffic people and maybe the CERT team be the cart communicators saying no throwing candy, none of this, none of that. So we'll have one group working on traffic and one doing this. I think you can see by me saying this is going to be complicated. I mean, it's different. It's a departure. We're going to have lots of moving parts going on from that aspect of it. So then things will kind of shut down after the golf cart parade. We're doing no ticket sales, no kiddie rides, no food service buffet in the pavilion, no cakewalk, no arts and crafts show. The lodge is going to open with their menu. It should say full menu from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. We talk about these 50 seating, and then the assembly room, I'm guessing we could fit about 60 seats in here. I think it's going to be probably some larger parties. It may be more families and the whole bit. Steve, you got a question? Well, that's why we've got down below reservations recommended to prevent crowding. So I think what we'll probably have to do is put a manager at each door. We may have to have people wait outside, and we're just going to have to control it. It's going to be a mess. Okay. So, but hopefully everybody understands. I highly recommend it to you all, to everybody here, and the people listening out there in Kiowa land. If you want to come in, make a reservation now. Okay. And please help us out. Lots of restaurants are doing that. People are waiting out in their car and they're sending them a text or calling them and they're coming in. So we should be able to do something like that. But Steve's right, but I don't know how else to get around it. Any ideas, Kathy? Yeah, I think that would be great if we could have a couple CERT members for fireworks. We've shot off the fireworks the last 5 years at 9:15. The lighting's perfect. It works great. We're going to have to, one of the things that concerns me is crowds at the 13-16 area, because I think there's people that will tend to crowd over there, and crowds down below the dam. So that's something we may have to look at. And I don't know how, 13-16, I don't know if we have to shut down there's 2 cart paths coming in and the bridge. I don't know what we're going to do. Okay. But if that gets jam packed out there, then that's not a good situation. So.
It is. That whole bank over there is crowded, around 16 grand.
Yeah. So I think we'll put out recommendations. It's going to be a July 4th to unremember or remember. I don't know which way it'll be, but it'll be that. And this is really as best as I can come up with. I know we've got some people that are disappointed, but we're trying to do our best. I think we've got to make sure that we don't cause, groupings and problem issues. And that's why all these other communities have changed and gone away from this stuff. So any questions on that? All right. Now you can go to additional business.
If I could push my space key down, right? Okay, from last meeting, we had a question that came up. It was not a budget meeting, and a budget question came from Mark Dickinson, lot 1656. Why does security not properly patrol Spotted Eagle Cove? And he goes into some situations that happened with kids on, I guess, jet skis. I don't know if we don't have security here tonight, but I did do some asking as far as the enforcement by security, and understand that the last Rules Enforcement Committee meeting, they had numerous citations that had been issued along with these. So I think that security is doing a good job. They can't be everywhere on the lake all the time, but it is being looked at, and I'm sure that will be enforced. Charlie, I think, may has questions that we got today for tonight's meeting?
Yes, and to piggyback on what Sam says, we've provided direction to security. They typically are on the water Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's really the peak times. I did receive, as a side note, I did receive notification earlier this evening at 7:57 that there was a Sea-Doo accident tonight. There was two Sea-Doos that ran into each other. No major injury. One had scratches, but one jet ski is not going to make it. So I guess there's a total jet ski, and we'll have to do additional, additional research on it. So, that's the worst situation we've had in a while, and it's not a good one. So I think it's something that we do need to be cautious and aware of. So from that standpoint, in terms of the questions for tonight, there was one brought up, what is the status of the fireworks? We know now the status of the fireworks. They will be, provided they can get a permit from the state. They have received several permits during this pandemic timeframe, so they do not anticipate or expect a problem unless something else comes up. The bigger concern at this time might be the dry weather. Okay, and if this dry weather continues, who knows if that could affect it. But I think they want to do fireworks. We've got the support of our local fire department. Okay, there was a question from a gentleman about 52-acre purchase. Where is it located? West of the driving range. When did we purchase it? 2013. From whom it was purchased? The guy that owned it before. Can't remember his name, but I'll contact this gentleman and he asked how much we paid, what is expected to cost and earn in 2020. We make a little bit of money off of it. The grazing lease is more than the taxes. And what is the time frame for a plan to use it or for sale? So Jim, that's something too with the land use committee. I'll forward that on to you. Another question about when will the lodge start serving Sunday breakfast again? We discontinued Sunday breakfast. It was a highly dependent on chapel service. It brought in probably 80% of the business for Sunday breakfast. With chapel service being discontinued, we made the decision to discontinue that. Now with chapel coming back open, we'll have to see how their attendance shows up before we'll reach a point where we'll go back and add Sunday breakfast again. It was a meal part where we got hit for a very short period of time, and then there wasn't much business whatsoever. All right, I see the POA pays someone $6,000 a year to oversee poker. Why? That should be a voluntary position to support that small group. I did receive that question from two other people. So from a total of 3 people, it's something that started long time ago, well before me. I think well before even the previous community manager. And it was started under the premise of having activities up here to bring people in to eat and drink. Okay. Several times right before I came here, there was an analysis done that showed that it came close to being an economic benefit of paying this person, that they brought in X number of additional dollars. Okay, so I know that had been done right before I came here. I mentioned it to Penny and she started shuddering with me in terms of saying, oh my gosh, don't make me do that again. Don't make me do that again. So I do think that was something that was brought up by several people. Right now, we really can't allow poker to be played here because the passing of the cards, the passing of the chips and all that. I do know that there's up to 40 or 50 people that will play on a Wednesday and a Thursday, or excuse me, Wednesday and a Friday, excuse me. And so I think that is a pretty good number. So I think that's something that we clearly need to look at, and when it's open. I don't know that the governor will ever pass a guideline on poker because poker is not legal in the state of Texas, right? And so I think when Oklahoma passes it, that'll be one thing, but I don't know if their guidelines match up with Texas. So I think we'll have to do some discussion on that. That was really the questions there. So.
Anybody else have any comments or questions at this time? If not, we're going to adjourn into executive session. Do I need a motion for adjournment into the executive session?
I'd make that motion.
Steve, second. Everybody in favor, say aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. Turn off all your equipment.